like doing a ramble just now of all the games I've played this year, courtesy of Xbox Game Pass. Have to just show you how insanely good of a deal it is. And otherwise, just to let people know what I've been playing this year so they can be like, oh, you played that? Was that fun? Oh, you said this. Cool beans. Or, oh, I didn't know you played that. Why didn't we talk about that? We could be playing that. Why aren't we playing that, man? So yeah, December 10th is seemingly when I started playing Game Pass, and like prior to that, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't like the idea of a subscription based service like this. I always thought, yeah, owning games is just the way to go, And I do feel like, or I did feel like, I guess it's still true. That's like, well, I do kind of fear that maybe all these developers are adding to the Game Pass library, out of perhaps some sort of coercion from Microsoft, like, if you don't, either you're in or you're out. And if you're out, maybe no one will play your stuff. But if you're in, then at least some people are playing your stuff, and Microsoft gives you some money. I just hope that people are, the companies making the games are getting their value out of it as much as we are. But yeah, so December 10th or December of 2020, I should have specified, is when I started. So it's been a year, and right before getting in, I played the Borderlands 3 DLC, played the Fallout 4 DLC, finished those, did everything. I was like, okay, now let's bask in this. And another thing that kind of prevented me from getting Game Pass is they would advertise, oh, it's 100 plus games, and I'd go through the library and like, what would I play of these games? And half of them I owned. You got your Final Fantasies were in there, your Fallouts, which I just mentioned. But then it's kind of like, well, the benefit of the Game Pass, another benefit of the Game Pass system is like, well, yeah, it's got games that you like, the ones you would buy, but it's also got stuff that maybe you wouldn't buy and you should try. So yeah, this is essentially a summary of all the games I played in order, which were available on Game Pass, and most of them still are. So one of the first ones I just jumped onto right away was the Crackdown 3 campaign. That was a game that, Crackdown 2, those were sweet. Crackdown, I think more so than Crackdown 2, just the idea of jumping around the city as a superpowered agent, collecting orbs. Like, I don't know why collecting orbs is fun. I don't know why jumping is fun, but doing both is just a blast. But I heard Crackdown 3 was bad, just bad. Like they advertised Terry Crews, great actor. I love everything that Terry Crews is in. I think. I was watching The Longest Yard today. He's a cheeseburger Eddie. Good character. Good character. But for that to be a highlight of a game that oh, you can be Terry Crews, but it's like once you start playing, you switch your character for someone you're with more specialized skills. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, it was okay. I like open world games, and yeah, it had that. It had the orbs, the running around, the destruction, the guns, and the explosions, and being able to jump around. It still had cars. Like, I don't know why these games bother having cars when like you can just outrun and out jump anything, but they did have some interesting vehicles, like they could like climb up buildings, and you could hover around. I don't think there was any hover cars. They split the game between a campaign mode and like the multiplayer battle mode, which I think Halo Infinite, it looks like they're doing the same thing there. So I didn't touch the multiplayer at all because I heard that was even worse. Stuff like you could just auto aim and shoot through walls, and it's kind of like, so as long as you were facing in the general direction of an enemy, you could just kill them, and that just sounded, well, without me trying it, it didn't sound very good. Let's see, I actually had a spreadsheet going here, but yeah, I got a good 20 hours out of the campaign and was satisfied. And that was a game that I would have bought Well, eventually, I think I was waiting for it to be on sale for less than 20. Oh, so that's the thing. So Game Pass 2, I guess, costs $16 a month. So you think, okay, as long as you get one $16 game, it's worth it. Now here's the thing, though, is when I subscribed, they had a promotion. They probably do. They probably still have this, or have done it again because it's December. 3 months for $1. But if you have a Xbox Gold subscription, they just kind of translate whatever subscription you have into Ultimate. And I think games with Gold cost $5 a month or something like that. So you're better off buying a year's worth of games with Gold if you still can, then subscribing for Ultimate, and then it just automatically translates to that. So I subscribed a year ago for $1 and haven't paid anything since. So just keep that in mind when I'm talking about how insane a value this is. Because with the Game Pass, you get these game quests, they recommend games you can play, and they challenge you. And half of them I do, and then if you use Bing and you just do 50 searches a day, both on your phone and on your computer, you can get enough Microsoft Rewards points to just. I eventually realized that it takes me 54 days to get enough points to get just of daily routine stuff to get enough Microsoft Reward points to buy 50 days of Game Pass subscription. So that 3 months I bought for $1, so 90 divided by 4, is going to last me however many months, provided I, just take the time to, search on Bing for so on. Crackdown. So I enjoyed that. Next game, Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves was a game that had come out. I want to say a couple to a few years prior, and I remember seeing it on E3 and being like, "Wow, that I don't know why I think that's so amazing." It's Rare, or you remember Rareware? They got the Donkey Kongs and the GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. I mean, they're a great company. Isn't it weird though that I only mentioned games from a couple of consoles ago? A couple of holy. And that was just another game. I was like, I might buy that, I might buy that, I might buy that. But I think I was put off by, if you look at True Achievements, how big the True Achievement ratio is, because it's got 3,000 gamer score available, but the True Achievement ratio is 33,000, which is almost unheard of. So it's kind of maybe a percent of the thousands of people playing this game are anywhere near completing it, or maybe there might be some things that aren't even completable or unattainable at this point, just due to the game changing all the time. But eventually I got it, and I was notified that a few friends of mine also got Game Pass, and they were playing it. I don't know. It was a weird. It was novel. It was incredibly novel. I'll say that. The idea of if you just play through the tutorial, you get a small ship which you can captain and navigate, and you kind of need to be responsible for raising or lowering the sails, go to the captain's wheel, go to the map. But these are all in different areas of the ship, so you're running around as you're navigating. So you quickly learn, okay, if I'm playing with one other friend on this small ship, or up to 3 other friends on the much bigger ship, it's still a lot of frantic stuff to get a hang of. So when we did have 4 people playing, it was nuts. We all had a task to take care of as we're just sailing over the open seas. But I don't know. I just thought too much sailing, which sounds ridiculous. If you ever play Wind Waker, it felt like maybe you're on the ocean 3 to 4 times as longer than Wind Waker. And sometimes you're on a mission and you solve a riddle and someone's looking at the map while communicating on a headset, preferably. to the person steering the ship, while other people are raising and lowering the sails, and being in the crow's nest and looking out. But no, it was just I mean, that alone was fun. And this was a game that the four of us ended up playing one night until like 3 a.m., which for me is unheard of. I think I've only been up to 3 a.m. maybe 5 times in my life. So really, like, that was the most fun that we got out of it, was having friends play this game where we were cooperating, doing a vague mission out there, but really, but just barely keeping us busy enough to really just enjoy each other's company on the open seas. And we didn't like some ships could just attack us and sink us, and like we'd be out in the ocean for hours just collecting treasure chests from all these weird islands, and then you could just lose them all if your boat sinks, and that was terrible. No, it was awful. So it was just, a lot of time sailing to hopefully get treasure, and hopefully you return it back to whoever you want at the time. So I mean, it's a well built game, but I just couldn't sink myself into it. Did I just try to make a pun? I don't know. But it is a massive game. Play with friends is the point. Disgaea 4 complete. So yeah, that was this guy was definitely one where, as I was searching through the Xbox Game Pass collection to be like, should I get this? Yes, Disgaea. So I didn't. The last Sony console I had was the PS2, and that had Disgaea. 2, maybe 3. I don't know. 5 I played on the Switch. 6 is possibly out by now. So here's this game, which I was very surprised to find that I played for 30 hours, because it felt like I didn't play it much at all. I think I streamed it on Twitch 2, maybe 3 times. Fact of the matter is, so with Disgaea, one of the or the first game, I should say, one of the big perks or selling features of it is, oh, you ever play RPGs where your max level is 99? Well, in this game, you can reach level 9,999, and you can assemble an army of characters. You can only use 10 in any given fight, but hundreds of characters if you really wanted to. You can even go into any item, any equipment, any accessories that you can pick up. You can go to a place where it'll generate a random dungeon in a piece of gum. Like, if you pick up a piece of gum, which can heal you, is a one-use item, they can heal you for 5 HP, you could go into a dungeon in that one item and go through 10 randomly generated levels, level up the gum so that it, instead of 5 HP, maybe heals 10. And along the way, you just get more items, which then you can just repeat and go into random dungeons, or you play the story. So I didn't get very far in this game at all. And now here's a trade back, which does concern people about Game Pass, relative to buying games, is that yes, some games in Game Pass do get taken off. So this is the first of which, of the games that I mentioned, which was taken off eventually, and is still a full price title. I don't think ever rarely goes on sale that often, so I just never picked it up ever again. And yeah, I don't know if games ever, once they're taken off, if they ever come back to Game Pass. I haven't seen that. I don't recall seeing that at all. Maybe it's happened. I don't know. But that alone was worth that month of Game Pass had I paid full price. But we're still on 3 of 7 games that I got within the first month. Let's see. Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. Now, I can't recall why I started playing Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, but recently I had, right before getting Game Pass, and the kicker was eventually, or It's a multiplayer focused game by EA PopCap, and surprisingly, like you could still find some games. There were several game modes, but only one or two of them were active, so to speak. But I mean, out of like a 10, 12, let's say a 12 player maximum lobby, you'd be lucky if you start a game. It would just put you in a world by yourself, which is kind of. I don't know if that's better than just the game telling you no one's playing right now. At least you could choose to wait. You could start the game and just explore the area, get a lay of the land, and then sometimes someone just joins in randomly. So I saw Plants vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville was available on Game Pass. And I figured, okay, it's more recent. There's probably more people playing, and there were. Plus, there was a single player, 2 story modes, but they were slow and they were just silly. They were just, I don't know, like you'd have to go around talking to people to do missions, and they were just so tacky and ridiculous. And so many more classes than the original game, which is a good thing, good for variety. Um, but it's one of those things where it's just like, well, I really like the sunflower. I like being able to heal, and it's so satisfying when you're the healing class, the support class, and you still get more kills than other than other classes sometimes. So it's kind of like, oh, but the other hand, it's like, well, in order to be effective, it does help if you know what the other classes can do. But I probably stopped playing after 3 of the plants, 3 of the zombies. And but still, there was still lots of activity, and I don't even think that was the most recent game in the series. So good on them for keeping the servers up. Slay the Spire. This was a real game changer for me. Had you asked me last year what I think about roguelikes and roguelites, first of all, I wouldn't have been able to tell you the difference. But I would have said, well, I don't know. I just think the idea that you create a game, and in order to inflate the longevity of the gameplay, how much fun the lifespan of the game, to make it so you have to die and it's unavoidable. That's garbage. But I don't know. Then at some point, I was browsing through the games, and somehow just the idea of like roguelite deck building. Now, deck building got my attention because there's definitely some board games I've played where you build a deck, and those are so fun. I'm talking Tento Core, Dominion, Penny Arcade, the card game, and its expansion. I mean, all the 3 games I mentioned all have expansions. Maybe not Tento Core, probably. So I don't know. I gave it a try. I was, I was at this point getting ready to be like, you know what? I'm gonna change the way I play games. I'm not just gonna go for games and only play them to complete them. Now that I got Game Pass, I'm gonna expand my mind, try things. So I played Slay the Spire, which, to my understanding, is the gold standard. Well, I say to my understanding, and also now to my experienced opinion, I feel like this is the gold standard for roguelike deck building card games, which you think sounds like, oh, okay, so it's the gold standard of 3 games. But no, you'll see, there's more. There's plenty. No, I don't think I need to go into detail about this, but it's just you got 3, but now 4 classes, which play differently. You build decks. There's lots of variety, lots of randomness. This has a pretty good ascension system, which is, if you're able to eventually beat the game once, it unlocks a new difficulty, which is slightly harder. If you're able to beat that, and so on and so on and so on. I feel like with one class in particular, the defect, I was able to get pretty high. It was satisfying. Like, I think the max is, well, I can't remember right now. It's actually this game was installed on my console for a very long time. I think only until, so I got it in December. Only in September, October that I was just like, you know what? No, I've moved on. I'm done. Um, I've become unfamiliar with the nuances and the specific strategies and what the cards all do and what all the enemies do. Some people didn't like it because it's like, yes, you sometimes fall into positions where because you can't really, well, you can plan your route, but it's just sometimes like, oh, I'm gonna fight this elite boss, and hope it's not that one I hate. Oh, it's the one I hate. Why did I do that? And then you just lose because they're super powerful. And the for what I think is the final boss, and hopefully I'm not wrong, I was only able to beat with one class, and only like once maybe. But yeah, very sad. Oh, I thought so. The idea, but now I get it. Now I get how roguelikes are fun. Or particularly, I still prefer roguelites. The idea that if you try a challenge, and it's not necessarily guaranteed that you're going to lose, but you are more than likely going to on your first try. But if you keep playing, you learn, you get better, and it also does help if you unlock something which makes your character stronger. But I'm sure there's a lot of game theory in there about like the best way to handle that because I can't imagine there's a trade off between, well, I imagine if you do unlock, and I'm not talking about Slay the Spire specifically at this point, but with concern about rogue lights is yes lights is that, well, maybe if you can over time level up your game save essentially, to a point where you just become stronger and stronger and stronger, then at some point it's just like, well, maybe the challenge just drops off at a point and you're not. But I digress. Slay the Spire, excellent game. And yeah, I know people who've purchased it multiple times on your different devices. They even have been saying they're going to crowdsource a board game. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. But I didn't have to pay for it once. Woo! I have to look up the name of this particular game. Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue. Now, yes, when did that? So maybe 2020, maybe 2019. Because yeah, the whole Kingdom Hearts series from the beginning. So yeah, this definitely did come out after Kingdom Hearts 3. Now the funny thing about Kingdom Hearts 3 is it's really Kingdom Hearts 8. Where you think, but maybe there's no time to get into that. And not only is that where there, at least 7 games you should have played to fully understand Kingdom Hearts 3, they were on different consoles from different companies. So, I mean, Kingdom Hearts and 2 were on the PlayStation 2. Was the first Kingdom Hearts on? Yeah, on PlayStation 2. But there was like a pre-sequel on I want to say the Game Boy Advance, and then some games are on the PSP. So yeah. So eventually, and then like none of them are on Microsoft until suddenly one day they came up with these collections, which they broke into 2. But like one of them, which is not this one, contains 6 Kingdom Hearts games, and then this one came out, which was 3, kinda. But yeah, that one that was 6, like, oh my god, what a deal! I think I bought it for $20, and it's got 6 whole RPGs on them. I played through. Well, there were 2 on there which I've never played before, just because I never had the specific consoles on which to play them. And then this one, including Birth by Sleep. And then there was this collection, which costs the same as the other one, which is strange. And all it's got is this one game. This one in the center is a prologue to Kingdom Hearts 3, which was maybe on. I don't know if they're still making PSP games at this point. It was on something I wouldn't have, and it's supposed to only be like 3 hours long, Birth by Sleep, which was a game I did play on the 3DS, the Nintendo 3DS. Funny thing though, I think it turned out I only played it for an hour, and had I played for 10 minutes longer, then the events of Kingdom Hearts 3 would have made infinitely more sense because someone who died in one of the earlier games, he came back to life in the very next cutscene that I would have played had I continued playing Birth by Sleep, which was a weird game. One thing I don't like in games is when you have a time limit. I don't like time limits. It's why I never played through. There's a game on the Xbox 360, Dead Something, where you're Frank West, a photographer in a mall full of zombies. And there's a whole series of them. I never played them just because it's like, oh, you only have 30 days, I think, or 72 hours. There's 3 days. Yeah. And like Pikmin I didn't like. Only for the reason of, oh, you have to get everything done within a day, and then the day ends, and if you don't get all your Pikmin back to the spaceship, the ones you leave behind are dead. Birth by Sleep has two protagonists, and as you're playing as one and just going through a level, you're playing an RPG. Eventually, they'll just fall asleep, and then you switch to gotta be careful with your finger. They fall asleep, and then you play as the other one until they fall asleep. And just in the middle of a level, you can be fighting a boss and just be like, "Oh, I'm tired now. Hey, I'm the other guy." So yeah, this is a game which kind of annoyed me that like, oh, yeah, they want the same. Oh, and then this third icon was just like a movie. It wasn't even a game. It was just like a movie based on the events of what happened in a mobile game I've never heard of. So the one game that was 6 games was a massive value. This one I saved until it was on Game Pass, and I really only played the game in the center, which is 2-3 hours long. And this was a game, yes, that is no longer on Game Pass. I'm not sure if the other Kingdom Hearts bundle is anymore because I bought it, so it doesn't affect me. But Kingdom Hearts 3, yes, is on Game Pass, but not the DLC. But yeah, so that was a massive. I got to play that, and I did, but I didn't bother playing. Maybe I started Birth by Sleep. Maybe, but I didn't get very far. Maybe I didn't even let the one guy fall asleep. Double Kick Heroes. Remember when rhythm-based games were a thing? Like when I first got the 360, it came with Guitar Hero 2, and then Guitar Hero was a big thing. Rock Band was a big thing. I mean, it must have. It felt like it did die before the next generation of consoles, even though there was on the Xbox One, Guitar Hero World or Live or something like that, which had you couldn't even choose what songs you wanted to play in free play. Well, you had to spend an in-game currency to pick the songs. You otherwise joined music video channel. Anywho, I haven't played a rhythm-based game in a long time, or at least not anything that wasn't also like an RPG or like. I didn't really play Crypt of the Necrodancer, Discomancer, Necrodancer, isn't that it? Double Kick Heroes. It is a. You can kind of see in the picture art. It's zombie apocalypse, and there's a band traveling in a car, driving away from zombies, hoping to find out, hey, what caused all this madness, and are there any survivors out there? And yeah, it's just notes go along the bottom, and depending on your difficulty, you press a button for guitar. Pretty challenging, and yeah, at this point, this is the third game which was eventually taken from Game Pass. And yeah, that was one where it's just like, well, I think I played it for like half an hour, then and I learned, oh no, it's being removed from Game Pass, and then I played it for a total of. Oh yeah, I have a spreadsheet. I don't know why I didn't. report this, and I ended up playing this game for 7 hours, beat it as much as I wanted to. There were a couple bosses that were just like, nope, I'm not going to be able to beat those. Oh yeah. So by the way, so these 7 games so far are all the games I started in December, and so Slay the Spire got 117 hours, not in 1 month, but between when I started and when I stopped playing. Crackdown was 20 hours, Disgaea 31, Slay the Spire 117 hours, and the rest just less than that. Yeah, not a game I can recommend, but that's another good thing about Game Passes. Sometimes it's like, okay, I've been playing this, and it's just like, yeah, I don't really want to. What do I want to play? And you can sometimes look up and be like, okay, yeah, don't look at the things I'm being recommended because those are going to be the same genre of games I'm playing. But like, what's in here? And he'd be like, Rhythm. Yeah, I've played a Rhythm. Let's play that. And then if it doesn't pay off, then just play something else. The Outer Worlds. Now I'm surprised that it actually took this long because in the vein of Crackdown 3 and Sea of Thieves, The Outer Worlds was a game that I was thinking of buying prior to Game Pass and just waiting for it to be on sale low enough. But I also think, I wasn't hearing great reviews, and then someone whose opinion I trust a lot, because I want to say this game was made, I think it was advertised as like, by the people who made Fallout New Vegas, possibly 3, possibly both. And someone I know who loves Fallout played this and was underwhelmed. So I'm like, but it looks good to me, man. And then, I don't know, I played it, beat it, got all the achievements, sunk myself in for 40 hours. So this was on January 1st I started playing. So now we're in January. So, how long is this? I can't see how long you've been talking for. Oh, only 32 minutes. Okay. Outer Worlds. Actually, pretty solid experience. If anything, I would kind of... Yeah, it's pretty easy to compare it to like a Fallout game. But earlier I was thinking, if anything, I felt it's more like a Dragon Age light. A Dragon Age with guns, because as much fun as you have going on these missions and shooting and, oh no, aliens, and they're just like weird, well, I guess Fallout didn't have aliens, but, weird mutants and stuff, and different factions, and dealing with who's in power and who's not, who has, or rather doesn't have the power. I found a lot of the fun came from getting to know your crewmates, of which you would be in these teams of 3. The engineer being the one who is the best, hands down. Shame I can't remember her name. But, or not necessarily the best, but like the only one who's like, oh man, I care about you. I want you to succeed. I want to be there when you overcome your anxieties and your doubts. And you got skills which are useful. And Outer Worlds, how is it like Fallout, you're asking? Well, okay, it's like an RPG, and you could level up different stats, and which completely affect the way that you play. You could just be like, hey, I want to be a melee, or maybe I want to focus on guns, big guns, small guns, explosives, or you could absolutely just be like, no, I'm going to put points into charisma and intelligence and talk my way through things. Or science. But a lot of fun was just the crew you meet. And just the circumstance that you're in. Battletoads. Well, yes, Battletoads was a game I purchased prior to Game Pass, with the intention of playing it at PAX Kerry, because it came out. Well, it came out right before a PAX Kerry, 2020, which was online, not in person. Um, but had it been in person, I'm certain that, well, at least I was leaning to or hoping, expecting it to be the PAX Carry game of the video game of the PAX Carry. But then there was no in-person PAX Carry, so there was no couch co-op. That part seems dope. 3-player couch co-op. But then, yeah, I didn't end up not playing this game until January, so I had Game Pass, so I didn't have to buy it. Whoopsie doopsie. But I bought it on sale. I can tell myself that. And then, yeah, even then, didn't play it that much at all. I think I mostly played it this month. So, yeah, I played for 3 hours. I don't know. It's just the characters were annoying. And it just felt like the game thought it was funny more than it actually was. Um, Kind of like in Ninja Turtles, the most recent iteration, Rise. Just imagine that all three of the, well, two of the characters at least were Leonardo. Ben Schwartz, Leonardo. There's interesting variety, but yeah, I jumped in recently to get some achievements for a thing I was doing, a contest on True Achievements, and there's just way too much going on with the controls. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's lost its heart. Um, but then again, it's like when I feel like when the original game came out, like in almost 30 years ago. So between then and now, I mean, I imagine all of our expectations, or at least how any of us feel about the Battletoads, may have morphed over time anyway. So I don't know if you really could have a consistent, oh yes, this is the Battletoads, which everyone will agree are the Battletoads. Um, that being said, did they ever really have that much character beyond? I might be getting them mixed up. Pimples, the big one, and Zitz has sunglasses. That's personality, right? um, but yeah, and they do the thing where like most of it is side scrolling. There's some other random stuff you do, which is on par with Battletoads games. Um, but then when you are eventually going into combat, and there's a few different screens of combat per level, they give you like a ranking, which is just like, once again, just a thing where they just cheaply increase the gameplay length by just going like, you lost your combo, so therefore I'm giving you a B ranking. Go for A ranking next time. It's just like, oh. That's also why I never got into Devil May Cry. Let's see. Next game, Little Acre. Which is still on Game Pass. Oh yeah, and Battletoads, I happen to look, and it's on sale right now for $6.49. So why did that matter? I don't remember, but I wrote it down. Little Acre, cute game, great animation, point and click adventure. There is an achievement for beating the game in an hour, so yeah, so that's what I did one day, and I think we went to a party in the evening where someone's like, "What did you do?" Oh, I played the game twice today. Um, where you switch characters a few times, but there's an adult man and his little girl, and the father slash grandfather, who was his inventor, has gone missing. Um, and it turns out he was just in the shrunken down, and he was so the whole game takes place supposedly in an acre, but they travel to this magical place. Well, magical place, which is just microscopically tiny. Satisfying experience. And and you know what? Games that are 3 hours, are a welcome addition to something like Game Pass, And then, in fact, let me just, or I guess I can't. I didn't have that open, but it's weird, games that are like short and I'm not sure if this is the case with Little Acre, but I've seen other games where it's just like, yeah, it's just a story, and sure, it's beautiful and whatever, but it's like, and then you go ahead and try to charge me $10 for it. I was like, well, it's still better than a movie, yeah, I guess, but that ramble went nowhere. I would recommend this if you have Game Pass. Sure, I would say that. Charming is what it is. If you want charming and brief, I like it. Ukulele in the Impossible Lair. This was a satisfying experience, indeed. Going back once again to Rare, like this isn't a game by Rare, but I think it's some of the people who worked on Donkey Kong Country and that trilogy. They did make a game a few years ago. I believe it was crowdsourced. And this one may have been as well. But the first game was more like a Donkey Kong Country, a 3D looking or 3D game where you go around collecting all the various currencies. Whereas this one, surprisingly, was half of it was a side scroller, and the premise of the game was similar to similar to like a roguelike. Not really. I'm not going to say it's a roguelike at all. But the idea is you start the game. There is a tutorial, and then you can start off fighting the final boss and doing the final level. In fact, you could. I watched a video which was developers react to a 12-minute run of the game, because you could just go ahead and start the final level and just do it whenever you want. But it's really hard. And in this video, the developers even said, like, oh yeah, this final level has bits and pieces that we wanted to put in earlier levels, but it turned out they were just too hard. Now, the saving grace, though, is if instead of you doing the final level, you can go to all the other levels in the game, and at the end of each level, you can rescue a bee, which is in captivity, like a bumblebee, a bee, and whenever you go to the final level of the game, for each bee that you've rescued, and there's, should I say how many? Tens of them. That's fair. For each bee that you've rescued, you essentially get one, not or an extra hit or an extra life, so to speak. Otherwise, ukulele, one's the lizard, one's the bat. If both of them are together and you get hit, the bat just flies off and goes, oh no, yeah, we're in pain. Ah. Somewhat reminiscent of Yoshi's Island 2? Yeah. Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's whatever. And then if you manage to catch the bat, then you're back to full health. But if after 20 or 10 seconds maybe, if you don't catch up to the bat, it just buggers off, and then you only have one hit, and then you die. But in the final level, in addition to those two, you can have tens of bees, where if anyone hits you, you lose a bee. Which I was expecting. I just figured, okay, for completionist's sake, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna collect all the bees anyway. So why don't just collect all the bees and then do the final level and just plow through it? Nope. The final level was hard. I had to strategize. I was, tried and struggled, and I sat down one day. I'm like, I'm going to accomplish this, and I did, and it was very satisfying. Um, but then so I started playing this game in January, and it was a game that where it's just like, I just need to get an achievement today. For every 2 Bs, there was an achievement. So that was easy peasy, easy beasy. But then they removed it December 15th. And I got, it took me 24 and a half hours to beat. And that was a game that sat on my console between January and December. Because I'm like, it's a good game. I play it when I want platformer. There's not a lot of platformers, and satisfyingly difficult. Every level had like 5 coins to find. So I mean, if you wanted to, you could just beat the game, or you could add the additional challenge of finding all these coins. You need to get a minimal amount to unlock more levels. The rest unlocked these potions, these tonics, which didn't really affect the game at all, most of them. And in true rare fashion, there were maybe 4 or such of these currencies to collect. Solid title. Carry On. You'd think I'd like it, because you notice I just said my name. Carry On. But no, it's despite being told this game has a 6 to 8 hour expected time to complete it, get all the achievements. I've only played it for half an hour. You essentially play as this symbiote looking thing in a lab, and it's very pixelated. And you can just go around and kill all the scientists and military personnel, and you can crawl around and like squeeze through things. And it's kind of puzzly and actiony at the same time. While I think there's this backstory. I think it's supposed to be like another genre I don't like to hear from is Metroidvania. Once again, I just don't like the idea of just like you pad on game time by having a maze and being like, do. Oh, can I go up here? No, not until you come back after you found 5 upgrades. Why can't they just make a map? Why do they have to tease me with you can't go here yet? And you're going to have to remember later that you couldn't go there previously. And I can't. I think there's somewhat stealth involved, but as long as you can just hit your target quickly enough and eat their brains, as long as you can stomach looking at that, I think maybe that's also why I didn't play. Maybe I'm just a little squeamish and scared. But as soon as they say, "Oh, we're taking this off Game Pass," which isn't necessarily a thing, which is guaranteed, then I'll boot it up again. I think it's been on my console this whole time, unless I really needed the space. Wargroove. Well, aside from the part where they are revamping Advance Wars and Advance Wars 2, raise my eyebrow, question mark? It does surprise me that no one has, or that there's very few examples of games that have looked at Advance Wars and been like, yeah, let's do that. And this is a loving tribute, I feel, to Advance Wars and Fire Emblem esque games. You got your different faction. Well, this is more set in like a swords and sorcery setting. But you still have the different factions where it's just like, you got the blue-haired I think you start with blue, and then you meet like these naturey green people, and the villains are, I forget what color. Let's say black, purple. You got these essentially commanding officers. I don't know what they call them in here. The dog is one of them. Yes, I think the commanding officer was a unit on the field. So when you triggered either from destroying other units or taking damage, unlock your CO power. I'm just using Advanced Wars terminology here. It affected that unit on the field, and most of the missions involve here's an objective, but also you lose if your CO dies, and alternatively you can win if you take out the enemy CO. It's pretty good. The only caveat is I would have more, or I definitely would have played more if I was better at it. And in an odd twist, one difference, pretty much an advantage it has over Advance Wars, was I don't know if just like Advance Wars, if each level in the campaign, like if the AI just had pretty much a preset thing, like I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, unless you do that, unless you do that, then I'm going to do this. I played a mission in Wargroove, and about halfway through, I realized the CO I was using had this, like I knew about their CO power, but I realized a completely different implication of what their power did. Maybe I should be less generic and just say what it was. It was like this. I want to say the CO was like a tree of something, like a very nature based character, who their CO power, once it was activated, you could just summon up these trees or like these vines that weren't protected. Well, I don't think they had any offensive capability, but you could select where they went, and then they could just block off the enemy essentially. And so it's like cool. So I'll do that to inhibit their progress. But only towards the end did I realize you could. Like, one thing I could have done was just put all the trees around the enemy CO, therefore halting their progress for one, making it so they couldn't attack my guys. But more importantly, if I could get them to be stuck, then I could just put my ranged units, like get the enemy CO stuck, get my ranged units, and just go pow 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 pow, dead, and I could have beat the mission in half, like a third of the time it took me to actually do on my first run. So I loaded up the mission again. I was following pretty much the same steps, trying to reenact exactly where I was when I activated the CO power in the first place. But the AI was, I don't know, they just decided to do a completely different strategy. Like I don't know if it was random or if they knew, like, let's do something different just to throw Kerry off. So I couldn't just cheese my way through it, which was very interesting. So this game has a very low completion percentage. And yeah, it was eventually taken off Game Pass. Although other games by Chucklefish, that's who made this game, are available. But this other one, which seems to be more along the lines of a tactics-based game of like an Indiana Jones archaeology kind of thing, doesn't look as polished. So this is a game which I've played on Game Pass, not a sufficient amount of time, and I've added to my watch list of like, if it's on sale for next to nothing, I'll buy. And that should kind of be a benefit of Game Pass, right? If nothing else, like they should put, like, I think maybe developers should use Game Pass as like, hey, here's a game that came out that we made years ago. You can play it. Like, we'll use Game Pass as a means of getting an audience for our older games. Oh, and by the way, if you enjoyed that, here's this new game you're putting out. And, maybe that'll work. Maybe. I don't know if it does. And that's so that's even now we've reached games I started in December to January. And of the 13 mentioned, a surprising 5 have been removed off Game Pass. Yeah, I was going to say, but not necessarily the ones which are massive. Oh, I this is a reason. Well, I would get Game Pass for, but even though Disgaea is one of them, so Disgaea, Kingdom Hearts, Double Kick Heroes, Wargroove, Ukulele. But then this next one, Downwell. So now that I've gotten a taste of what roguelites and roguelikes can do, here was a game. Well, in the end, this one was more, I would say, arcadey than necessarily. Well, so that's the thing. So, like with Slay the Spire, all right, or like roguelikes in general, it's kind of like, well, when you play a game around, essentially, um, like and you either win or you die, generally. Uh, like that is a session. And for most roguelikes, I found I am satisfied with just playing one such session. Unless, maybe I play one where it's just like, oh, I goofed within 5 minutes. That doesn't count. Just lose, start over. But I find that, hold on. Have I not? Oh, okay. It's the next game. Okay. I was going to say, did I skip one? Because there's another good roguelike coming right up. But to my point, roguelikes and roguelites, like Slay the Spire, and I'm kind of slow in this. You're supposed to, like, there is an achievement for, like, beat the whole thing in 20 minutes, but most Slay the Spire runs take me at least 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour if I'm doing something really mind-bendy and strategic, and, oh, I got to make sure to play this card before this card, before this card, before this card. What was that order? This card, this card, this card. Okay, do that. I take my time and strategize. Now, Downwell. I don't know where I thought I was pointing. Downwell was the first, and yeah, now I am teetering because it's rogue. The premise of Downwell. It's actually very similar to if you ever watch Black Mirror Bandersnatch. I'm just gonna spoil that. The protagonist is a programmer who meets one of his heroes, who is this genius programmer who understands the world better than anyone. And you see him at one point working on a game where you're just like falling, which is foreshadowing for something. And this Downwell is, similar. No, just the game starts when you just decide to jump down a well, and there's these four different, and you just fall. You just fall, and you just fall, and you have guns attached to your shoes, or boots rather, and maybe 6 different varieties between like of how bullets might come out of your shoes, like more of a shotgun blast, or of a machine gun, and that is kind of how you control your descent speed. Is you could just keep falling, and I think there may have been some acceleration, but like either if you shoot, that's how you can kind of hover for a while. But then as you're falling, there's a few ledges, boxes you can land on, or you can shoot your way through them. Otherwise, there's enemies just flying around, and you got to quickly recognize, okay, are they the kind of enemy that I could land on and kill? And then if I keep doing that on different Goombas, let's say, get a combo. And if you get a super high combo, your first few games, you're lucky if you can get a combo of 3. By the time you master the game and you're trying to, specifically do this, you might get a combo of up to like 60 without hitting any surfaces to safely land on. Or is the enemy you're looking at, for using the same metaphor, a spiny. What were the things in Super Mario? Yeah, the little turtles with the spikes. Spinies. Spiny's the name of the cactus, though. I don't know. What does Lakitu throw? I don't know. Spinies are the little guy. Pokies are the cacti. Okay. Yeah, so you just fall, and you try not to land on spikes. You try to land on enemies. Higher combos means you can get this currency. There's very limited room for healing. There are shops where you spend the currency on ideally health upgrades or maybe other stuff like charges. And as you beat these certain sections, you beat however many, and you were, I think. Well, I'm not gonna give it away how short it is, how long it is. But yeah, it was roguelike because in the sense that the more you play and the more combos you get, higher your score. You do unlock different, means of like character types, and like some were floatier, some I can't remember anymore. And you just try to get further and further and further down the well, sending our love down the well. Now, this game was pulled from Game Pass at some point, but it's only $3.89. But for me, the completionist, when they say, "Oh, this game is going to be removed," and they usually give like 2 weeks warning and put the game on 10-20% off. I should have just bought it, but instead I was just like, well, I'm going to see how many achievements I can get, and I got 27% in all. Play this game for about 5 hours. So it's not a huge value that it was on there, but maybe I wouldn't have played it before. And if I get an inkling, I can just buy it. Downwell, pretty fun game. Tricky hard, though. Monster Train. Yes. So at some point it's kind of like, okay, Slay the Spire is dope. What else do you got? What else can this genre do for me? And here we got Monster Train. Which, okay, so with Slay the Spire, you got your 4 character classes, and they have different ways of playing. With Monster Train, you have 5 or possibly more with DLC, different factions, so to speak, and you choose a main and an alt. And so between the 5, that'd be like 20 or 25 different permutations. 5 times 4 divided by 5. Bah. I can't do math right now. Which affect, so between whatever factions you choose, and each one has 2 different heroes, which are like your commanding officers again. Lots of variety for how you could decide to build your decks to defend a train which carries the last spark of hell, and you're trying to defend your train from angels who want to snuff out hell. Because your 5 different factions are different types of devils and demons. It's pretty dope. And in each encounter you face, like you're on this. Now that I think about it, the metaphor kind of falls apart. You're on a train that is 3 levels high. I guess they could, just because we don't have those on Earth, doesn't mean it couldn't be possible. And yeah, so these angels come in at the bottom floor, and you play your cards of this deck you're building, and you summon monsters to kind of like fight off the angels. And if the angels aren't killed in one round of combat, they go up to the next floor and and then likewise they fight there any defenders you may have put in a round, and then they go up and up. And on the top floor is like the shard of hell, which can defend itself a little bit, but if it takes it also has its own health, and you can't really put any defenders up there. So if all these angels get to the top and take it out, that's when you lose. Very satisfying experience. Very different take, very different activities, lots more variety, lots of different, and just the combos you can make with these cards. and artifacts are always good. Different levels of ascension as well, which I was able to beat because due to this the achievement community finding the seeds, which even though you're playing on the highest ascension level or whatever this game calls it, each game has a different level for or a different term for ascension, but I think that just makes the most sense to me. It's the easiest word for me to remember. Use the Slay the Spire terminology. They were able to find the seeds. It was like, okay, if you just follow this kind of strategy, you can do it. So I did. Got all the achievements, and but still took 77 hours. Quality title. And yeah, there were daily challenges too. So that was kind of fun. Just you'd go in and I can't remember if there's a leaderboard, but I think you couldn't see it until you try to run. And then once you try to run, you can kind of then you can see, and then you try to run. That's the score you get. No, that's not true. You try to run. You set a score on this on the leaderboard, and then you can look at the higher scores on the leaderboard, and just you can see like the final result of like, oh, at the end of the run, they had these cards in their decks. They took these artifacts, and you could take the time to go like, okay, I see where when I chose A, they decided to turn left at Albuquerque. So you can try to rerun the run and try to do better, and theoretically apply that knowledge to future runs of like, okay, where normally I would have thought this is the right choice, maybe that's a better choice I'll go for next time. So through this leaderboard system, and maybe more roguelikes have this, and I've just never really thought about it until now, but it was neat that through the system you could learn other than just through complete experimentation, but just see what the best players ended up with and try to reverse engineer and develop your own, or learn that way. Because you'd think it's not easy to learn. Okay, never mind. Monster Train, good recommendation. Even if maybe you didn't like Slay the Spire, this plays differently enough, I think. But if you did, highly recommend, especially if you're leaning towards, okay, I'm done. Maybe I should stop playing Slay the Spire. Give it a go. Greedfall. When did I start playing Greedfall? Seemingly the day after Monster Train. All right. And I got. Oh, you know what? No. Earlier I said Outer Worlds reminded me of Dragon Age. This game reminded me of Dragon Age, made by a French developer named Spiders. Am I remembering that right? They also, I believe, made the Techromancer, which is another series I've seen but never tried. And for I don't know why I decided to play this game on PC rather than console. And it did not run very well. I had to run it on low setting. Once I reached like the first, even then, I think it was supposed to be like a tutorial boss, but it was a monster. It was a big monster, big tree with antlers, and I really had to turn it down. And once I turned down the settings, I'm like, oh, okay, I can actually get out of the way of this thing's attacks. This game felt a lot more like Dragon Age, and you assemble your parties um, and with factions about because you essentially your character is one who leaves a continent of a planet, which I imagine, or sorry, a continent of a planet. Um, it almost feels like you're leaving England in the 1800s. But I mean, I imagine it takes place on a completely different planet, where like even in that era, in this country, in this fictional place, you learn you learn early on that there's even factions where you come from. But you go to this island where no, and where you're coming from, people are dying from this mysterious illness that no one knows. Oh man, what we don't have a cure. It's a plague. When did I start playing this? Oh no, it was too close to home. So people are just hoping, well, we know of this one island where, which, we've already a few years ago have sent people to start settling um, colonies in. But we know there's this native population who is very spiritual, and maybe they have and we've discovered that they don't fall victim to this plague. Maybe they have a cure. Um, and yeah, so there's political intrigue because like of the people who went to settle this, you also have like a society, a town that is very science based, one society which is very it's religion based, and then your own faction which is trade based, I guess. And then you meet other people from the native population who is more nature and spiritually based. And as you complete quests, you more or less have to decide, okay, well, who am I going to make happy this time? Scientists, religion, nature, or trade? There's also a merchant's guild and like a sailor's guild. And you meet 6 people who join your party who are from these various factions, who all have their own opinions on things and their own story quests. And the talent tree is very satisfying. Between you get to choose between if you want to be like a melee brawler, a wizard, or more of a hunter ranger. And then you can also kind of choose talents which are in between the 3 categories. So you could be like a battle mage or a ranger mage, um, brawler ranger. Now I don't know if that just heavily all kinds of combat focused essentially. And then you can choose different and then even along the way but yeah, you decide which factions to make happy with dire consequences, which were kind of scary. They do affect how the story goes, and when you play, you learn, or if you look at the achievements after the fact, you realize, oh, I could have pissed people enough that they could have revolted, and I could have never, or like, trapped myself and never been friends or recover the connections between these 2 factions at all. But, and I don't know if this is just entirely because of my computer being slow, the game was very glitchy, which was a little annoying until you just kind of benefited through cheating. Like sometimes, or you'd be traveling this world, and then sometimes you got to like, in order to like advance to another area where it's like, okay, well that's where the combat is. In order to make it so you can't just run away, you have to climb a cliff in order to get to that new area, or like jump down from a cliff to get into it. And then during combat, you can't climb. But sometimes if you like jumped off a ledge into the lower area, you would just fall through the map and just, oh no, I can see the bottom of the island. And then your character would just reappear eventually. And you could just walk up to the enemies while they're still loading again. Stuff like that. So a very satisfying experience, and I'm kind of surprised I still haven't gone back and tried any other games from this developer, of which I think have been available with Games with Gold. But yeah, maybe I bought my computer. It's not even 2 years. Now it might be 2 years old at this point. Now that being in December 2021, maybe it runs better on consoles. So that might be the way to go. What remains of Edith Finch? Yeah, another short one. Um, beat it in, or got all the things, completed it in 2.5 hours. Is it still on Game Pass? Maybe. I did not write that it isn't. Um, and yeah, it's about a girl or a woman who goes to visit her ancestral home. Can't remember if she goes because an aunt died or her mom died, and she hasn't been to this house since she was a child. And yeah, you just learn more about your family, all of whom lived or suffered mysterious deaths. And each story you hear about is played in a completely different gameplay, and you experience some really weird stuff. So yeah, if you want something that's pretty trippy, not too committed or not doesn't require too much commitment. Um, I can't remember if like there was a really grand arcing story or if it was just like, nah, here's each of the family members and what they brought to the table. And all takes place in this one really weird house in the Pacific Northwest. So that's cool. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't pay more than $12 for that game. Neoverse. So I don't know if at this point I was completely done. No, I think Monster Train I still would have been playing at this point. Um, but I was still itching for more roguelike deck builders, please. And somehow I came across this one, and it's like, well, if you're playing Slay the Spire or Monster Train, and you think to yourself, there should be more attractive ladies, then you should play Neoverse. You got your three different classes here. One is a paladin, one is more of a summoner who has these massive beasts, and one has guns and swords and guns. You switch. Um, and you're, I don't know if, well, in these games where it's just, run after run after run, story doesn't really matter. I mean, we'll get into one where it has a magnificent story. See if you can guess what I'm talking about in advance. Yeah, Neoverse. I don't know. It's a little. I don't know why it just feels like it should have been like a free to play browser game because yeah, you can buy skins like that. That's just I don't know what that's about. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't. It's just something about it that just seems or feels cheap, but I can't put my finger on like what's necessarily wrong with this one. Um, Although I did find, yeah, like I did find it's okay if I'm watching something on one screen. It's fine to just play this on the other. Because yeah, it's accessible on game on the console and on PC, which I think I mostly played it on PC. I think I only got four, well, 14 and a half hours in. This is satisfying run. And yeah, once again, they all have their all different ascension levels, modes which I haven't looked or touched or possibly unlocked, um, and a satisfying progression of I didn't necessarily succeed this one time. Maybe I will the next. And there's if you don't like one of the classes, there's two others to tamper with. Um, and yeah, attractive ladies. If you like that. Fractured Minds. I could not find an image which fit well on the screen, which showed the title. This one believe was taken off. Yeah, uh, which was odd. I don't know. I played it for half an hour and completed it, and learned a thing or two about depression and the hopelessness that you feel. Um, Trying just to accomplish what I'm sure everyone else thinks is just a simple task. But the blocks that occur for people who are neurodivergent. Is that a word? I don't think that's the word. Um, and yeah, despite this image, well, I mean that's as scary as it gets. A little creepy. I mean, yeah, I think at some point you're in a scene where the whole thing takes place on a street, and there's just shadows moving around as pedestrians. I don't think any ones in particular just start following you. But yeah, they get annoyed and they're just like, "Hey, watch where you're going. Why are you not good at being crossing the street safely?" Um, huh. It tells a story. It has a message. I just don't remember what it was. But interesting puzzles that really get your emotions going. Undertale. Yes, that was a game that was added to Game Pass, which I hadn't played in years. I remember it was a big deal, and one after returning from PAX, I want to say whenever I went to East, I came back and had to play it, and whoa, man, that was a trip. Um, so yeah, if you never played Undertale and you have Game Pass, give it a go. The whole, of course, the whole thing is, it's an RPG where you don't necessarily have to kill anyone, or rather, kill everyone. You can talk your way through most things. It's a massive phenomenon. I know one. Well, not for everyone. That's all I'm gonna say. 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 For some people, it's everything. Other people might be like, I don't see why this was everything. I enjoyed myself. Don't get me wrong. And I played. Yeah, I'm just gonna say I played differently than I did prior. Um, and it ended strangely differently as a result. Sorry, I just looked at my thing and said, I'm not playing Grifflands right now. Um, Now, for adding to the Xbox, seemingly as a commentary against achievements, the creator of this game, was it that Fish fellow, or am I thinking, or did Fish make Fez? Um, they added this like casino area where you get more achievements just for winning at roulette. No, not roulette. A slot machine, which is just their way of saying like, oh man, achievements. What's people will do this? People will just play the slot machine. Actually, I guess I don't really remember the message. Kicker is, in order to reach this area, um, there's one of the mid bosses you have to fight a specific way or get a specific outcome out of. And my brother, who I encouraged to play this game, he did not reach that outcome with that boss, so he could not reach this area. So he's gonna have to start over if he wants to get all the achievements, which is too bad. I am very tempted to just go over and just do it. Just start up a new game, reach all the way to that boss, and just be like, there, different outcome. Because I mean, I think the whole game, if you want it to, you can beat in 6 hours. In fact, yeah. Why don't I? What did I say? 7.5, including all this slot machine business. Or of course, you can. There's plenty there to consume your life, particularly if you're an artist and you want to invest time into all of the alternate universes and the alternate universes of the alternate universes of Undertale. It's amazing. Gears Tactics. Oh man, I feel like this was a game that I probably downloaded right away and was just waiting for Yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get to it. And then started on April 1st, 2021. Because boy, do I like tactics games, except when I'm not good at them. And this one I was acceptable at. Um, why do I like tactics games? And yeah, I don't play that many. Like everyone was saying, oh, this plays a lot like XCOM. XCOM I didn't get far in. But like I said, I liked the Disgaea series. Um, but yeah, this played more. I'd say like Mario versus Rabbids, but more. It plays like XCOM. I don't know why I'm dancing around that. But with the Gears of War skin, of which I've only really played Gears of War for one day, and like beat one of the campaigns in one of the either the first one or the third one or something. Despite that, very satisfying experience. And yeah, I've like had found reason to play through the campaign multiple times on different difficulties, and yeah, put in 93 hours in this game. Um, except it was a little buggy where if you within the DLC, like you can start a game and if you include all the DLC, you get a bunch of different enemies. You get this unit called Jack, which is a robot who is an additional unit you can bring into battle who can like either buff your allies or hinder your enemies or just has more additional action points, which you have a limited amount on your turn. To do things like flip switches, pick up treasure chests, etc. And yeah, it turns out if you have that DLC on, sometimes the game breaks and you have to restart missions. Now imagine though if you're playing the mode where you're not allowed to restart missions. It's like their Iron Man mode. It's the idea that you're not allowed to restart. So that way, if your characters die, then they get you. I think it deletes. Well, yeah, I think it deletes your save essentially. So it's supposed to be like the hardcore, but not necessarily difficult. Just like the hardcore mode, where if you can reach a point where it's like you lose, perma lose. So I was trying that with the Jack DLC and it broke, which was too bad. Like I got to a point where like it would load the enemy's turn and then like, hey, look at me. There's a cutscene where this new enemy type shows up, and he like runs up and then like tries to leap over a wall or like over cover, and then he just kind of just gets stuck and keeps trying and keeps trying and keeps trying, and I can't. It doesn't. It never becomes my turn, and it's just like, oh, that's too bad. Otherwise, brilliant game. If you like tactics, and once again, very satisfying class management and even the end game. Like there's reason to keep playing after the story. You get more challenging missions with more satisfying loot and gear and level up in the talent trees. And the talent trees are interesting because there is a finite amount that you can level up in, so you've got to really strategize on like, okay, well, um, I can afford these talents, but what I really want is a character who can get these talents all the way at the extremities of the tree, but you can't. You got to specialize on a given branch per character. I mean, you could have two of the same class, and like one is good at, let's use a rogue for example, being stealth and staying in stealth and having more movement, versus one who can pop out of stealth and kill everyone. Um, so even though, yeah, I'm not a Gears fan, um, and probably have little in. Well, Gears maybe if someone took me under the wing and was just like, let's play the swarms modes or go through the co-op campaign, I'm sure they're awesome. But I just have no interest to just play through the story solo. But Gears Tactics is good. Drake Hollow. Um, I think when I started playing, I think I just wanted a something to the extent of like you explore a world and can build things or something. And I was looking at some reviews, and one that I really should have listened to because they were dead on is essentially, well, I unfortunately don't remember the analogy they used, but it's kind of a lot of this game involves babysitting, which can get annoying, especially if you're like me, as I previously mentioned. I don't like things with time limits. So, Drake Hollow, the story starts out. You're someone who is experiencing a breakup from a relationship, and you follow a crow into a portal to another dimension, and you end possibly, and you end up on this island, or like you end up in this. They call it a biome, which is a number of islands, but like you start at an island that's like here's where your base camp is, um, and towards the end you or once you progress, you can build like defenses and furniture and entertainment, but in order to like level up your camp, in order to find these things, first you need to go find Pikmin. And I'm only kind of exaggerating. Like these are were they called the Drakes? Possibly. Um, you find these plant-like creatures in some of the other islands, and you bring them back to your base, and yeah, and then they have their various meters because they need to have so much food and water and entertainment, like the Sims, if you will. And so you need to explore all the other islands to go find resources, which are tremendously scarce. And weapons break down. I don't like that. I usually don't like that in games. There's some games where I guess it kind of works. Breath of the Wild comes to mind. But once you find the Master Sword, it's kind of like, thank goodness. Spoilers, Master Sword in a Zelda game. Um, yeah, so not only are you kind of limited to like, oh, they need food to live, and like like any given island, you might find a juice box, and it's like, well, that'll last you a day. It's very scarce stuff until you can eventually grow your own food, I think. In addition to that time constraint, like once per in-game day or some period of time, monsters attack your base, and your little Pikmin can't defend themselves. So you'll be off exploring and be like, oh, wow, I found this treasure hoard. Or, hey, I'll be able to, create a supply chain from this truck I just found all the way back to my island, and we'll be able to harvest resources that way. Oh, yay, exploring. And then they'll be like, hey, your camp's going to be under attack in 3 minutes. It's like, haha. And then you spend resources to teleport back or run all the way back in time, and ugh, ugh. And they warn you too that like, or if you take the time to watch videos about like, oh, things I should know before playing Drake Hollow, um, if you go ahead and just try to like level up your Pikmin, their demands for food and stuff will just increase beyond your ability to meets the requirements. So you kind of have to like make sure you have enough resources in place before you level up. And it's just like, why would they do that? So it's many complications, and yeah, I did not get what I wanted out of this game. And then it eventually was taken out of Game Pass, so I took like used the time limit to get as many achievements as I could, and then was kind of satisfied when it was off. Um, of Game Pass, but 11 hours. And yeah, the last few hours were very um, grueling. I was gonna say grindy, but it wasn't. Fallout 76. has a lot of the same things of the game I just was whining about. Like weapons deteriorating and like eventually you reach a point theoretically. I didn't reach this point where like you have more resources than or you eventually have enough resources to take care of yourself, but you have to like reach level 50 first. And by which I mean, well, I meant level 50 or level 51. Why not? And then I don't, but it's crazy because, like, okay, well, I started playing and I got to maybe level 10. And then much later in the year, I was on vacation and my friend who loves this game was like, hey, why don't you, while you're on vacation, go back and beat Fallout 76? And I did. And I stuck to the mission, like the story missions. I'm like, here's the main plot. Let me just beat that. And I reached level like 36, and I talked to him later, and he's just like, "What? You beat it at 36? You're supposed to be like level 45, 50, you nut." And yeah, just doing that was, I was challenged. He gave me a challenge to do it, so I did it, and it was towards the very end very grindy. But it's just like, well, if I took my time to enjoy myself, it wouldn't have been so terrible. But yeah, like a lot of people don't like what they did with the Fallout series, but if you kind of ignore the expectations of, oh, this is going to be the same as all the other Fallout games, if you just take the time to like look at what's there and what is actually there, and not try to hammer on expect like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, but actually look at what it is. There's just a different experience, a new perspective on the Fallout franchise, including stuff like, well, I got a taste of it, and once I did, I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand how in these instances I'm in, sometimes I'll see people who are level 1,000 and so on. You'd think like, oh, okay, if the story ends at 50, how are you still playing? You reach level 1,000. But yeah, there's stuff like raids and missions that are, arcadey in nature, or I don't want to keep saying arcadey. I don't know. They're just like you fight waves of enemies, and of course, the more you do it, I guess it's more analogous. Analogous, is that a word? With World of Warcraft PvP stuff, battlegrounds and stuff, where it's like you get missions um, that are not just, quests, go here, find things, kill things, but more just like, hey, here's a 10-minute match, so to speak, where otherwise you wouldn't have seen that previously in any Fallout game. But yeah, it's quite the different experience, all right. But it's not exactly an MMO RPG. Like the worlds you plop yourself into might have 20, 12 to 20 players in it at any given time. Like it's not densely populated, and the people you meet, if they're so willing. Like I play a lot of games solo, but they might be there to actually help you and lend aid. Like when I beat the final mission, I wouldn't have if it didn't just so happen that there was a level 600 willing to drag me through the last dungeon. It was ridiculous. Um, and yeah, there's a lot more having to. I was gonna say craft things. No, it's true. You do find the materials to maintain your weapons. I felt more so than just finding them as you do in other games. And there's, well, as with many other Fallout games, you could lose your, or even Bethesda, I should say, lose yourself in all the lore which is available should you choose to. There wasn't an area where it seemed like it was the place where the Brotherhood of Steel formed. I might be wrong. But it was, you see a bunch of these letters around about how they're just like, why are we referring to ourselves as knights? That's weird. And what are we gonna call you, the scribe, or I forget what the leader would be called, Grand Poobah? That's weird. You're weird. And yeah, all your favorites are there: the handy robots and the Mirelurks and Deathclaws and all the Pip-Boy stuff and the vaults. Yeah, lots to do and wacky quests. A lot of fetch quests, sure, but um, just a different Fallout experience. Available on Game Pass. Very different to what I played next, which was Rain on Your Parade. Um, just a very cartoony, a game where you play as a rain cloud. And yeah, a lot of the missions are just like, here's a pool party. And you get a list of missions like knock everyone into the pool, get everyone wet. It's just zany fun. There's parody levels based on Metal Gear Solid. You know what? Let's not give any. I don't know. It's just hijinky fun. Um, some challenge, but not so much that you're going to. It's going to halt your progress, but only if you want to super complete everything. Does it get a little tricky? Um, but yeah, 7 hours for me to complete the game. Where you play as a cloud, and you can rain, you can snow, and once again, I want to give too much away. Uh, as you travel your way to the fantasy play, the clouds paradise destination, Seattle, Washington. Final Fantasy X-10-2 HD Remaster. This I was really, really, really looking forward to. How many? I feel like maybe I've played Final Fantasy X 2 or 3 times, maybe twice, maybe only twice. And yeah, there was a time long ago when I had the patience to play RPGs, which are grindy in nature. When I used to think, oh man, games that take 100 hours are awesome. Yeah. Oh man, like because back when you couldn't afford all the games and all the games weren't eventually free. Um, so if a game was long, that was good. Um, but at this time, now that I'm also obsessed with achievements, and there's one for winning a game of Blitzball, I really wanted to win that first game of Blitzball, and I didn't, and then I just quit. So I think I only played this game but still 6 hours to get to that point. It's kind of a really slow. I don't. Maybe I should. Perhaps I regret looking forward to that. I don't know. I have good memories of like the combat. I mean, switching party members on the fly is dope. The grid sphere is amazing. Just the idea of like, sure, like there's this map that you all like a shared talent tree. Um, yeah, maybe I just like it because that was like maybe one of the first games I ever played that had a talent tree. If I think about it, whoa, man. But yeah, the idea is like all the characters start on different places on the sphere, and you could just absolutely choose to be like, I want this character to be like this way, but you could absolutely make them be like this way, where this other character already has these attributes. Oh my god, the customization, man. And yeah, 10-2, I never got far in. I probably owned it, but just I don't know. And it just seems like you should play 10 before you play 10. Like refresh in your mind all the character and plot before jumping into 10 too. But I might change my mind on that. Tetris Effect connected. Sometimes, because I'm not a big PC gamer. But sometimes, I just want, as I'm doing something else on my computer, watching movies with friends, working. There's just like, well, it'd be nice if, during downtime at work, um, it would be nice. It'd be nice to have some. If I could also occupy the other part of my brain, which isn't fully focused on the task at hand, on something. So Tetris is a good thing that you can kind of semi-focus on one thing, play along here. And Tetris Effect Connected, I did play once in VR, and that was insane in the membrane. And yeah, it's still wacky and different. And as you level up, the setting changes, the music all changes, the design and atmosphere all changes. It's just less impressive than when it is VR, but still just interesting and fascinating. And there's plenty of Tetris to be played. It's Tetris, okay? Tetris. Knockout City, though. No, I've decided to just focus on this guy getting hit in the face. That's a dope experience. And yeah, the Xbox Game Pass, they pride themselves on, like, it's not just a matter of, they have lots of games you can play at any time. They pride themselves on day one releases, which to me is kind of like, well, I'm used to playing games. Like, if I wait for them to be on sale, like a year or two after, especially since I don't play that much multiplayer, I don't know how Knockout City got my attention. I just happened to see, and it's like, it just happened to be the day it came out. Possibly, maybe there's a YouTube ad. I don't know. But I don't play a lot of multiplayer games. But this one was the game I was playing for quite some time. And yeah, it's pretty good. Now, despite my earlier criticisms about Crackdown 3 multiplayer, which I still haven't played, nor do I intend to, Knockout City is pretty dope because it wasn't strategy. Yes, there was a lot of things that you could eventually learn to focus on, to hone on in, but the controls were simple enough that you could learn how to do everything. It just became a matter of like, okay, well, what techniques are important in any given round? So there's stuff to learn, but it's easy to pick up. Stuff like, it's dodgeball is what it is. It's 3-on-3 dodgeball on these massive skyscrapers. Sorry, as I was saying, despite my earlier criticism of Crackdown 3, one thing that they do to simplify this is you do lock on to players before you throw your dodgeball. But it works because when you are locked on, like if someone's locking onto you, there is display on your screen. I can't remember if it's only if they are aiming or if it's also in like your incoming. But like there's enough indication of like, it's coming from this way, that way, or that way, to give you enough warning to dodge it. But that requires some skill. And yeah, no, it was very fast. It was just fun to play day one, because while people were learning the controls, and you can feel people were kind of learning these in sync almost with each other, it was interesting looking at what people weren't doing and then trying to exploit that. Like I just found in the first few days, and then this didn't pay off weeks later. Like I just found it was easier to just run at people, jump over them, and then at that point, while I was airborne, they weren't used to dodging balls from that direction. just stuff like that, where it's just like that's how I develop my own strategy, my own terms, my own. I get good at this, and I was successful at that until people eventually, I guess, they saw enough other players doing that they learned to clue in and such. And just teamwork dynamics are important because it's a matter of if you have three people coordinating who you could get away with not being as skilled if you had more coordination versus your opponent who might have one awesome player on their team and two people who don't work together. Because in addition to being able to pick up balls and throw them at people, sometimes if there were no such balls around, you could turn your player into a ball for your allies to throw, but your enemies could also pick you up and just throw you off the cliff. Stuff like that, and also if you're running around with your team and you have a ball, you could pass it to your opponent, which is also, and then they'd be able to throw it fast. Or if they're holding a ball, if you pass to someone holding a ball, it just bounces back to you, and now both your balls are supercharged. Just stuff like that. And also, it's just a matter of if you got one-on-one, two equally skilled people, who knows who's gonna win? But then if you have 2-on-1 or 3-on 3-on-1 attacking a person, you're just gonna succeed that much better. So it was a very good lesson in coordination. And then the matches were long enough that you know what? If you, it's just one of those things where it's just if you aren't on a good team, well, it's not that long. If the other team will win, then you get your experience, whatever. Better luck next time. And sometimes it was just a matter of okay, well, these two people on my team suck, but that makes me feel good because look at me, I'm better than these two idiots. They're the reason we're losing, not me. And then sometimes, you happen to come back and it's well, that was a close game. That was satisfying. And then as seasons progress, there's more loot to unlock, more skins. And this was a game where there wasn't really a lot of advancement. Everything was there, but you just really unlocked better looking gear, which theoretically, once you're matched up against an opponent and they're whoa, look at that epic, awesome gear, there might be that intimidation factor. All the more reason why I just tried as long as I could to stay in pretty much basic looking gear, hoping that people would underestimate me. Yeah. And then sometimes you just, you see someone do an intro pose and what? I haven't seen that one. How long has that person been playing? Oh no! And then it's all the more satisfying to win against them. And there was plenty of updates since. New levels, new ball types. But I was about done right as season 2 was starting. And so if you can find 2 or 3 people to play this with, not only will it be massive fun, but as long as you're not too giggly with each other, if you have that coordination, then you'll excel, I imagine. Unless the competitive scene has gone off the rails somehow. Knockout City, that was a dope. This is the greatest instance of where day one mattered for me and actually benefited from that feature of Game Pass. Control. This game I played on a suggestion or something like that. I think I undermined a friend of mine's opinion, and then the next day he said play this, and so I did, and I beat it, and it was real good. It was real good. It was good. It was good. It was weird, paranormal, creepy, but not scary. And you're a person who is infiltrating a government agency or a pseudo government agency or even a black shadow agency. Black shadow agency, does that mean anything? Who is in charge of keeping track of all the strange, unexplainable things happening in America. and you infiltrate this because your brother was taken from you decades ago, and during that same incident, a spirit joined your mind or something like that, and so you do have a somewhat sensitivity to what are essentially force powers. Um, and yeah, the Paranormal Activity Bureau, PAB, just making sure that wasn't a filthy acronym. Very shortly upon arriving at this place, they put you in charge. And when they're going through this major crisis, so hey, get on that. And yeah, towards about midway to halfway, you get some real neat abilities where it's just like, okay, cool, I'm Superman. And once you reach that point, it's just like, oh man, wacky fun. And yeah, I completed it, and there was DLC, but it wasn't included in Game Pass, so I didn't pick it up. Um, and it's just nice to have the 1,000 out of 1,000 gamer score. Where was I? Okay, so, and at this point, we're still talking about, so Gears Tactics and Drake Hollow, I started playing in April. And these last 5 games, or games I've been playing, or started in May. But then halfway through June is when I started Control. So Knockout City, seemingly, they had their daily missions, their daily tasks, which get you however many experience, and I guess I doubt Fallout 76, but I guess between Gears Tactics and Knockout City, yeah, that lasted me through April, May, and halfway through June, mostly. Don't think I was busy with work. The next game on the list, Dead Space Ignition. Because yeah, sometimes what I really want, because yeah, you have these cravings sometimes where it's like, yeah, sure, you're playing these big games, but maybe you want to end a session because I don't know why I have this problem where I can't, unless like there's a time limit or a challenge or something, I can't just play a game. I can't binge games. Like I for whatever reason I have to make them last. Where it's like, okay, well I played this game for 2 hours, I should stop playing it, but I still want to play video games. Um, and what I sometimes want out of Game Pass, or I'll check my games with Gold Library, are just puzzle games or games that like theoretically should take you forever to beat, but you can play a little bit here and there. And I was hoping that was the case with Dead Space Ignition, which is I've also never played any of the Dead Space games. And this, I guess, was supposed to be like a 2 to 3 hour completion, and I didn't. I don't know. There were just some. So it's like a story told through a comic, and there's 3 to 4 different puzzle games you play, and 2 or 3 of them made no sense to me, like what you're actually supposed to accomplish or what your strategy is supposed to be. So I didn't beat this, and might not get back to it. And whether or not it actually reveals anything about the Dead Space universe that you didn't know, I don't know, and it doesn't affect me anyway. I think I have access to the Dead Space is it a trilogy? But just seems scary. And then this was another day one release I was really looking forward to, Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance, and it did not deliver on my expectations. I don't know if I necessarily. I think I was just hoping that the Dungeons and Dragons part would really appeal to me, and in fact, the setting takes place in the area, but not the era. So not the time, but the place of a campaign which I had started 6 months earlier in a tabletop RPG in a D&D campaign. So yeah, I played this for 9 hours, and yeah, you get to play with one of 4 characters, one being Dritz Do'Urden of Dritz fame, and three other characters who are canonical to Drit's story. I haven't read. I've started reading one of the novels about Drit's, but there's, and I think the others based on are also characters which have existed before this game. And yeah, so there's four characters. Dritz, who's like a Drow Ranger. Brunor, who's a dwarf with like a shield. Um, an archer, who is I think Brunor's daughter, possibly adopted, and a barbarian. And I figured, okay, well, I'm going to go with what I imagine is going to be the least possible choice, so that way when I'm paired up with other players, there won't be any conflict. And yeah, I played, and on normal difficulty, it was too easy. If I bumped it up a difficulty, it was too hard. And it was just cut and paste monsters. And I think I'm supposed to repeat levels to try to get better gear, but it was just so dry. And yeah, I figured, okay, well, if bumping it up a difficulty is too hard, let's try the matchmaking. And there was absolutely no sense of like, oh, okay, so like you're this level, then we'll match you with players at this level. It was just like, it was just, is it like, do you want to play with other players? Sure. Well, here's someone who's 5 times the level you are and probably has beaten the game and is on some other mission which you are 5 missions away from, and it's just like, well, no. um, so that was it was just disappointing, and I found myself not having fun. Um, so I put it away, and that was unfortunate, very unfortunate. Because yeah, I should have cared about the setting, should have cared about the characters and story, and um, but no, I don't know, just dropped it. Maybe, and then the thing is, yeah, with co-op, I find like as long as you have someone to play with, like even bad co-op games are fun. So maybe that was just where I should have. But then the thing, like I'm saying though, but if you have someone to play with, then you also have to kind of like make sure you're all on the same level. And nope, nope, just didn't feel like there was any guarantee that the commitment would be worth anything, which is too bad. Mm-hmm. And then so that was towards the end of June and halfway through July. So I think at this point, maybe I'm still playing Slay the Spire, maybe some Monster Train, and then whatever games of bigger worlds I've previously mentioned. And then one day, I see The Tourist. And my notes indicate this was during PAX East Online. I see this game, which is supposed to be super easy to complete. And yeah, so that's when I used a spare television and just put it on my coffee table to watch PAX East content. In fact, I remember watching some of the Omegathon rounds while playing this game, or at least switching between what I was focusing on. Yeah, it was just this cute adventure with mystery, where you're this tourist on an island and you're just exploring what attractions they have to offer, and each one had all these silly mini games that didn't really carry over from island to island. There was exploration and puzzles and platforming, and yeah, it was a hoot. And but yeah, I managed to it was a lazy day. I did nothing but sit and play and beat it within 6 hours. And another game which has a very quick completion time was this Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, or like Complete Edition or something like that, where and once again trying to search for a fun Dungeons and Dragons experience. I keep being reminded that there is a Pathfinder game on Xbox, which I think was released within this past year or maybe the year prior, and it's like the complete edition of this Pathfinder game, which I imagine had many expansions on it. And she's like, "Well, I don't know if I like this particular game type." I think they were calling it like a CRPG. And as I was reading reviews, I kept seeing these references to like, well, it's not quite Pillars of Eternity, or it's like it's in the same vein of Pillars of Eternity. And I'm like, what is this Pillars of Eternity? I saw there was a sequel on Game Pass. I gave it a go, put in 3 hours or so, and it wasn't my cup of tea. I don't know what I was like. I got through the tutorial. It had appeal. It had a lot of depth and character customization, almost like if I were to play like start a Pathfinder campaign. But I reached like the first, maybe the second or third non-tutorial area, and was just getting defeat handed to me in like a very like I was mathematically looking at what I was doing and logically, trying to brute force like, okay, well, I die if I do this. Try something else. I die if I do that. Okay, well, I died because of this. Avoid that. And I die because of that. I'm just like, well, nope. And I just don't want to just turn it down to easy or whatever. And I saw there was this exploit where if you just load a save from this website, all the achievements unlock. So I just did that. Katamari Damacy reroll, which I played for 12 hours. Got all the achievements except for roll over everything, which there were these spreadsheets that had 1,000 different items, some of which only appear in certain levels when you're at certain heights in certain rooms, and it's just like, okay, I don't want to do or like I just want to roll stuff up. I don't want to plan specific instances of what I'm rolling. And yeah, so it is a remake of a game I probably played once over 10 years ago, but I couldn't. I felt well. It felt for all I knew, it wasn't a remake. But yeah, they all. I'm gonna say they all feel the same, but it is a satisfying same. Don't get me wrong. Rolling stuff up, just starting small, rolling things up, getting bigger and bigger. Showing your old man who can roll stuff up, all with jazzy music that you can't help but sing along with. A dope experience. The Ascent. This was a game. Someone else, a friend of mine, was just like, "Oh, I'm on Game Pass. Who else is on Game Pass? I'm starting this," and I played around for a day. It seemed like there was a story there, a path and quests and customization and all that. It was a interesting top-down isometric view. Well, I don't know. I think I was just caught up in other stuff I was playing, and um, it didn't grasp me. I don't know. Oh yeah, the tourist, by the way. So Drake Hollow I mentioned is taken off Game Pass, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The next 8 games weren't, but now the tourist was taken off Game Pass, but not a massive loss. Like I say, just a cute chibi adventure, which was able to do in 6 hours. So this game didn't hold me. Or you know what happened? Oh, okay. I saw what I started playing next. This was August 7. I started playing Ascent. August 13, Hades, which I ended up playing for 106 hours. Just okay. Now, would I have played Hades had I not gone on this odyssey of roguelike deck builders and introduced myself to the roguelike and roguelite genre due to Slay the Spire? I don't know. Like I said, I may have been found myself in a position where I would have thought, well, if you're just gonna die, and the whole game can be theoretically done in an hour, but it's gonna take you, well, like I say, but to the end, it took in order to do everything except beat all the ascension levels, which they give you a silly reason to do that. But I wasn't driven to do it myself. Like I like to beat games and play other games. Um, but no, the point is, I probably wouldn't. Had I not started playing roguelike games, I probably wouldn't have started Hades, which I'm going to say is Game of the Year 2020, but in my case, 2021. Definitely, for sure. So even though I didn't play it in 2020, Game of the Year 2020, absolutely. Um, it's just so good. This is the game I was saying earlier where roguelikes don't necessarily have a compelling story. Hades did. It had reason to go back and talk to different people and try to, so many people to interact with and develop, not so much develop relationships with, like in most RPGs, but at least, win them over, get you on their side, and get more boons from. I definitely liked quite a ways in realizing, oh, okay, so when you talk to some of the other gods and they give you boons, if you have specific boons already, that can help you get specific ones you're looking for that are super powerful and synergize with the boons you already have from the specific gods. That was dope. Stuff like that. But yeah, Hades was a very satisfying experience. Because in like the first, I think it took me 10 runs to reach and then beat the boss at the end. And it was and like I'm saying, in these roguelikes where like it takes me half an hour to do a run, and typically I can just do a run, win or lose, and then that's my session for the day, and I stop playing. Maybe I switch over to something else. Um, it did feel very like satisfying that I got better with each run, and that was very satisfying. And then this touches on what I was rambling on much earlier. It's like, well, the kicker is though, it's like, was I getting better or was I just unlocking more experience and more perks, which made the game easier? But I mean, that's what I look for in roguelikes. I'd rather that than just like something which is impossible seeming at first and then just doesn't get easier, right? That's just frustrating. Um, the best weapon's the shield. The Gardens Between um, is a good game. sorry. Um, when you're doing a task, which involves sitting at a computer for hours on end, and you have, in theory, and maybe you only need to pay attention to one. Maybe you're being paid to pay attention to one monitor, and then you got another monitor just sitting there, and you have a big attention span. um, Gardens Between, each of the levels are like these. I want to say dioramas, like just uniquely shaped islands, decorated with memories of these two children's past and instances of them hanging out. Pretty much the premise is one of them's moving away, so I guess it's just them thinking about all the times they've hung out and grew together as friends. And they're puzzles and they're neat, and because all else it is, or as far as controls go, there's left and there's right, and then there's like an interact button. So all the levels have a start, and then as you hold right, the characters move forward, and time progresses linearly forward, and then if you go left, the time rewinds and they move back. But then sometimes, like, if you block a path, then maybe they'll go left and back some other way. Kind of that I don't know. I can't describe it any. And actually, I don't have to because now it is. Yes, it was removed from Game Pass. It was a very satisfying 4 hours for me. And yeah, I think I hit that timeline. It was just, and only twice. I think maybe there's like 15 of these levels, something like that. And only twice was I just like, I have no idea. I have no idea. I have to look up. Otherwise, I have to put this game away. And it was just stuff like, it just turned out to be wildly imaginative. And it's just like, I didn't feel bad that I didn't get it, but I would have felt awesomer had I discovered it, and I just didn't. Stuff like you're in a level where there's a hose, and then as you're moving forward, it's dripping water. And had you just stopped at some point right as the drip was coming out, then it would have interacted with, an electric socket, and then, short circuited something, and that's how you advance in the level. But it was very neat. I mean, what I find interestingly satisfying in puzzle games is when you are able to, like, you go, okay, this is a puzzle. These are the rules. Therefore, therefore, if I brute force it, there has to be, and and it's guaranteed there's a solution. Otherwise, I mean, what kind of game would that be? And then if you have difficulty finding a solution, but there has to be a solution, and not necessarily, well, okay, I said brute force, but that sounds bad. But I mean, it's nice to, when you're doing a thing where you're just like, this is solvable. This is solvable. I don't get it right now, but this is solvable. And then when you do, it's just like, yay, this game had that. And Game Pass had that game. Now it doesn't. But it might be cheap now. Another game. Okay, and that takes us through to. Oh, no, it does. Oh, whoops. No, wait, it might be right here. Yeah, Yakuza 0, which is being removed from Game Pass at the end of the month. So I started it, and it turns out I did not get very far at all. Because here are the two protagonists of the game, and I didn't even see the one on the left until I learned this month that the game is being removed from Game Pass. Yeah, pretty interesting, because it feels like at some point in this year, they're like, yay, we got all the Yakuza games. And I'm like, cool, I haven't played any of them. And it turns out whenever I think of these games, I'm actually thinking of Shenmue. So I thought, okay, so where do I start? Do I start with Yakuza 0 or Yakuza, I forgot the word as I was saying the sentence, Kimani? Or Yakuza 1. And somehow I landed on Yakuza 0, which is a prequel. So suppose it's one of these things where it's like, well, do I start at the beginning and then I'll appreciate who these characters are when I do the prequel? Or does it make sense to just start at 0 and then the order of events will make sense? And seemingly they said start at 0. So so at some point they're like, oh, look, we have all these Yakuza games. I think there's 6. And then like Yakuza Like a Dragon, is that what it's called? Which is seemingly completely different how you play, more of an RPG rather than whatever this is. And yeah, the game. So now I'm on a timeline where it's just like, okay, it's gonna run out, and this game is like a 60 to 200 hour game. So I'm just gonna switch to easy, play through as much of the story as I can, and yeah, the game is satisfyingly ridiculous. Like, you just think like, oh man, okay, I'm this guy who is a Yakuza, a member of the Yakuza who gets kicked out for reasons, and is being hunted or being framed for murder, and then next thing you know, you're talking to like a boy band who has trouble appearing like with their appearance, um, and they're afraid that their fans might call them phonies, or some teenager off the street asks you to be her boyfriend because she's been lying to her father about a boyfriend that she has that she doesn't actually have, and the boyfriend she described just happens to match this guy's appearance of like tall and menacing, dark, and with an eye patch and a ponytail. It's like, woo. um and today I was playing, and I've reached a point where like I'm buying real estate in the city. So yeah, it's just wacky. Um, Wacky good fun so far. Um, Kind of strange though, because like, oh my god, the cutscenes are so long. So long in fact that sometimes does the thing where like, it's a cutscene, so I'm not touching the controller, and then the screen will fade because the Xbox is like in not quite sleep mode, but like I don't know, some sort of not battery saving mode either, but like the screen just turns into some sort of gray screensaver mode. It's like, oh my god, how? So and you save before a point, and you realize you just cutscene, and then you save after, and it's just like it's been 25 minutes since I've done anything, which at first was kind of annoying because it's just like, okay, sometimes you can skip dialogue and just sometimes you can't. And it's all in Japanese, which I'm okay with. Well, at first I was just like, well, but the kicker is it's one of these things where then, well, you gotta focus then and read and make sure you're reading along. um, Unless you're okay with just getting the gist of it, but there's so many diversions that it's just like, well, ugh, maybe I got to make sure I was paying attention. Although oddly enough, even though I stopped playing for several months on end, because when did I seemingly started in August? Okay, so end of August, and I picked it up now in December. I still somehow remember the faces of these different of these Japanese mafia members and their names. Some key ones I still somehow remember, but it's just like Tashibana. Who's that? Kuz and Kazama. Are they two different people? Okay, yeah. But yeah, having to play and then just starting to learn about this other guy. Oh my goodness! It was just a magnificent introduction. Like I thought, like I didn't even realize this whole time, like when I boot up or like seeing the game art of this game, here's these two characters. I didn't realize there was two protagonists. I assumed the person on the left was maybe an antagonist towards the end of the game. But so you're playing as this first guy, like I said, ex Yakuza who's framed for murder, and suddenly, like it goes, cool. This chapter of the game ends. Next chapter begins, and it's like, oh, has time passed? Suddenly, I'm in this cabaret. There's this band performing, and you see these two Japanese businessmen that are talking about like, oh, is it so safe to be here? I mean, here I am carrying this briefcase full of money. Isn't this the dangerous part of the neighborhood? And the other guy's like, oh no, don't worry. Even if there are any yakuza here, they'll be behaving themselves. Trust me. And you go and you follow and listen to these two Japanese businessmen. I don't know why I'm emphasizing that they're it takes place in Japan. There's these two businessmen, and they're going about their business, and of course, going in and they're greeted by these two hostesses who join them for drinks, and they order champagne. And then it turns out that these two characters don't matter at all, but they're just introducing that at this cabaret there's a manager who comes in, and he's also kind of like a bouncer, and that's who this second guy is, and it's like, oh, okay, he's the next playable character, but they they just completely didn't explain that you're not playing as this guy, the first guy, anymore, nor do they explain who these two businessmen are, and then it turns out it doesn't even matter who they are, and look how awesome this new character is, that they decided to have a prologue to this guy's introduction. So it's just like, oh my god. And meanwhile, it's just like, so it's going to be 30 minutes between when I stopped playing as this one guy and start playing as the next. Um, so unfortunately, it's like, okay, well, if it looks like they're going to be taking off more games of this series, maybe I won't dare to play any more of the Yakuza games. Maybe the Like a Dragon one, or see if any of them are shorter. But then, yeah, I don't know. I'll see how compelling the ending of this game is, and see if it makes more sense to follow them in order, and see how much the games cost. Whew. Dodgeball Academia. Now, did I finish this because it was? No, I finished this because I enjoyed myself. Took 15 and a half hours, and there is multiplayer, local, I think, maybe not online. And the setting is the story takes place in this school where they play dodgeball, and that's it. And there's this tournament at the end of the semester, although it kind of feels like the whole game takes place over a week. And you're a guy who's, for whatever reason, I don't think it's because people don't like him, but he just needs to form a squad or form a team. And all the different characters have different special abilities. This balloon-looking guy is like a healer. This tougher-looking girl is, instead of catching dodgeballs, hits them back for more damage. Stuff like that. Guy in the middle, Hadoukens. And pretty satisfying experience. It's one of those things where it's just like it seemed like a challenge you could do. Maybe if you weren't focused, you might lose a battle, but just pay attention. It wasn't too hard, and then for accessibility purposes, you can actually toggle how much damage your opponents do, how much you do. To if you if you want to proceed through the story, you can just make it as easy as you want, or as challenging as you want too, which is interesting. And yeah, and dodgeball in itself, it plays well, it plays fun, because it's fun to hit people with rubber balls, right? Right. Right. Um, Zuma's Revenge, and like I say, sometimes I want to play. I want to be able to be like, well, I have an odd amount of number time. I have an odd amount of time between now and my next scheduled activity. I don't want to, boot up Yakuza. I just want to, chisel at a game which I know will take me however long to play, and I have an odd amount of time to play it. So I booted up Zuma's Revenge. I think Zuma had played previously on like a Xbox arcade compilation disc, and Zuma's Revenge. They just took that and polished it a little to make it not easier. It's certainly challenging, but just less of a like you can take the time to go through a menu to choose your level rather than you have to play all the levels in series. And there's boss fights and very challenging thing. I got a 390 of the 400 gamer score, and the last one is just like I can't. It's a gauntlet. So contrary to what I just said, the one last achievement is for this one mode where you do have to do 10 challenging levels in a row, and if you fail, you're back to zero. And there's just one level which is just I don't know. I don't know if it would be easier on PC, um, but it's just very restrictive, very hard, and I just can't beat this one level. And I don't know. I don't know if I can beat the ones after it. And I managed to beat enough of the story mode and get medals for getting a high enough score and high enough or fast enough completion time on enough levels to meet all these other mission achievements. So just a satisfying puzzle game that I can play in between other games. Um, Otherwise, I was tempted to play Peggle, but I had mostly completed that, and then all the challenges there are just like nope. Maybe if I want to be a Peggle master, so here's a new experience I hadn't played, or a new game I hadn't played prior. Zuma's Revenge. I liked it. Gang Beasts, on the other hand, is garbage. Whoa! That's not Kerry. Who said that? Um, I don't know. It's just a game that was constantly being suggested whenever searching through the Game Pass library as like, oh, here's a game you can play with friends. So I made sure to install it before the latest PAX Carry, and between panels, I booted it up for myself and two others to play, and it just did not make any sense at all. Like the control, they don't take the time to explain. Like, okay, here's the controls as they make sense to us. You're just, I don't know, these ragdolly characters, and in the end it turned out that like one of the shoulder buttons was for like you raise an arm and can grab, and the other shoulder button was you can raise an arm and grab, and you leap a little bit, and it turned out you can climb by mashing these, but it was just like weird combat where you can't, like, you can punch and that's it. And I don't know. It was just, I don't know. I don't know how they release this on multiple consoles or why it is recommended so much, but it doesn't work. Quick completion though, so that's good. As opposed to 12 minutes, which was the PAX Carry 2021 video game of the PAX Carry, I think, pretty sure. Where I was expecting the opposite, where it was like, Gang Beast multiplayer fun till the end of time, and then that being only fun for a little bit, 12 minutes. The name suggests it's only going to be fun for a little bit, but oh man, oh boy. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but the premise starts, you're play as a guy who goes home to his apartment one day, greets his wife or fiance, and and something disastrous happens, and it turns out you're in a time loop, and then you have, which lasts 12 minutes, and you kind of have, and then it just resets, and you're back to just coming back home, and a lot of the events repeat, and you got to find a way to like change things so that they don't end up disastrously again and again. And sometimes you do things one way and you discover new information, so that when you reset again, having this new information, you can do other choices. And it was just a satisfying experience that had a group of attendees just enthralled, and everyone pitching ideas of like, oh, do this, make sure to do this before you do that, and it was just a fantastic adventure. And yeah, the options you had were not too restrictive. You couldn't exactly move furniture around, so that was a little concerning. That where someone would be like, oh, just put the couch in front of the door. But I was just like, there's no option for that. But otherwise, yeah, there's a lot of things to try and do and learn, and just a unique experience. It was fantastic. So it ended up being 11 hours to complete. Fogs. So yeah, 12 minutes was a single person experience, which ended up capturing the attention of a group. Fogs looks like it works best as a co-op, or works best as a co-op. You play a dog which has two heads. So if you're playing with two players, then you each control a head, and it does, it's a stretchy dog. And and if you are playing with someone, hopefully they are someone who appreciates cute dog antics, and you can coordinate. And because obviously, if one person, it's someone, hopefully it's someone you can cooperate with. Um, and it turned out being much longer than we thought. Like we thought, we got 2 hours in, we went to these various worlds, but there was more to them, and not a lot of puzzles that made us furrow our brow and go what. But it was, if anything, it was more making sure that there was the coordination and cooperation, um, which if you were playing single player with like two joysticks, I suppose, um, would probably be satisfying as well. But I see this as a two-player co-op, and I haven't been tempted to play or finish it myself. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now, having, as mentioned earlier, not had a Sony console since the PS2, I haven't played any of the Uncharted games, and I am. But having said that, I am under the impression that this is the closest to an Uncharted game that I have ever played. Just in the sense that you have this protagonist who can climb, and like you navigate through these essentially, for the most part, paths where they'll highlight like sections of walls that you can climb, and for the most part, a lot of the paths are you have to do this and this and this and this. And it's set in the Star Wars universe, and there was some interesting turns and twists, but I consulted some Star Wars enthusiasts about things which seemed out of place to me, but they're like, no, that's canon. That's the planets they go to. Yeah, that is the kind of things that happen in these places. Um, and yeah, you learn a little bit more about, because I want to say this takes place after episode 3. Now I having never watched any of the like Clone Wars or stuff. Um, but yeah, Order 66 occurred. The Jedi have been massacred. And I get the impression this one's been in hiding for some years, but the Imperials are looking for Jedi to um, either eliminate if they're a problem or possibly assimilate. And the main character, on this cover art, not so much, but in the game, he looks exactly like the actor he's based on, and must have done some impressive mocap. And it's the actor who in Gotham played the guy who was the Joker's brother. I'll just say that. So it's just kind of weird seeing him in a hero's role, and a little bit higher. Can I zoom? Zoom. I don't want to ruin things. There is you and then this character who meets up with a former Jedi. Apparently, you can quit being a Jedi, who is acted by Deborah Wilson of Mad TV fame, and her character's animation is quite unfortunate, where just the eyes look so bulbous. So you got the Joker's brother over here talking to. It almost looks like they thought, hey, let's take Deborah Wilson's face and turn it into a fish, just with the eyes bulging out. It's just very disconcerting. It almost looks like they're like, let's make this other character not just a human person. And yeah, so you go to these various planets, forest planet, an ice planet, and it's just neat. Just seeing this different perspective of the Star Wars universe, and you see this Jedi who's not like the rest, who just has slightly different powers and is slowly remembering their training, and um, isn't necessarily invincible, as you might expect in other Star Wars games, where it's just like, oh, I have a lightsaber, so therefore win. You do, like, it is a little hard to, block. Well, actually, blocking laser blasts isn't too bad. I think you just hold the button, but like the combat is pretty tricky at times, and parrying stuff is hard. And you come across other Imperial enemies who have very differing lightsaber weapons, like daggers and like a bow staff kind of stuff, and requires some thought. It does get pretty hard. And then there's exploration and finding secrets here and there. Some are, you don't necessarily have to find all of them, but for completionist sake, I did. And it took some time, and like you had to complete all the maps and find all these nooks and crannies. But I did it, and it was satisfying. Um, and yeah, just another good entry into Star Wars. But if you don't care about Star Wars, probably none of this matters. Mortal Kombat, I just want to say, oh yeah, so because of all these games I have been playing on Game Pass this year, I have only purchased 4 video games this year, plus an indie bundle. And Mortal Kombat was a game I purchased on sale, or Mortal Kombat Ultimate, which included a story expansion and all of these characters, including John Rambo and the Terminator. And it turns out, so I purchased it in September, and now Mortal Kombat has been added to the Game Pass 2 days ago. And Star Wars took 34 hours, which is a solid experience. And then on the same day that I purchased Mortal Kombat, I also purchased Marvel Avengers. And then a week later, it was added to Game Pass. So then my point is, of the 4 games that I purchased, 5 now I think. Well, four video games, and then like another one which cost $1.26. Just another Super Meat Boy clone, essentially. Of the 5 games, just say 5 games. Of the 5 games I purchased, 3 of them have ended up being added to Game Pass. So like I was saying in the get-go, when I was hesitant to buy Game Pass, because like, oh, all the games are just games I would buy anyway, there you go. It's like I didn't have to buy most of the games that I eventually bought anyway. Marvel's Avengers. Kind of dumb, though, on Xbox you can't play as Spider-Man. He's Sony exclusive. Like, you almost think like that Square Enix, or I think it was a Square Enix, Crystal Dynamics, I think is the specific studio who made this, would just be like, yeah, I get it, Sony, Spider-Man, but like, no. Like, the people who are fans are going to be pissed at this. Like, it almost seems like it'd just be like, fine, well, we just make this Xbox exclusive. I don't know. So yeah, this game's okay. Like, I've put in 37 hours into it, and I think maybe the story took 10, 15 of that, where you start as Kamala Khan, and she's awesome. She's my favorite character in this game. And you slowly assemble all the Avengers one at a time, and learn their controls and their slightly different aspects. Iron Man seems particularly weak in this game, and that's a little disappointing. But like, he can fly, but so can Thor. And yeah, they all control a little differently. And then through DLC, Hawkeye was added, and I can't remember her name now, but they play very similarly. And Black Panther. And it's kind of weird because, yeah, this game, once again, I think would benefit a lot if you were to play online and with people, but I just don't. um, and then because level gaps. But the tricky thing is, you're meant to play the missions in 4 player, and if you play single player, like they'll just add 3 random characters that you're not playing as members of your squad, but they use the stats that like you leveled them up to be, and like the talent tree decisions you planted. So it's like if I'm playing a hard enough mission, like, and let's say I choose Kamala Khan because she's the character I'm maining as, it's like, oh well, they might match me up with Thor, Hulk, and Captain America, and it's like, okay, well, I never use Captain America or Hulk, so they're level 5 and I'm level 20, and they don't have all their, so you kind of have, so not only is it a big drag to level up your individual character, you have to, in order to be effective, you kind of also have to level up the characters you're not using, and it's not like you can just be like, oh, I always want to have Hawkeye, Iron Man, and Black Panther in my party or something like that. It's like, no, it's just randomly decided, so you kind of have, it's kind of a good idea to level up all the characters, and it's just like, and that's how you make the game 200 hours long. And yeah, it's kind of dull. Like if you take the time to think about it and be like, but then if you take the time to think about it, all video games are just go here, push buttons because the mission told you to. But yeah, these definitely feel just like, well, you're either in a hallway fighting robots or you're out in the forest fighting robots. And they vary a little bit. But, it's one of these things where they give you daily missions, daily character challenges. They swap in new, or they, through updates, add new mission varieties of different painted layers and new characters for free. That part's dope. But yeah, if you think about it too hard, it's not fun. But if you don't think about it, it's pretty fun, and then there's enough reason to go and play. Now, although I will say it is a bit of a bummer that as you play, you unlock gear, and this is a tiny gripe, and the gear gets marginally better. I mean, at some point, it's going to be like you reach a certain level, and it becomes meaningful when you get new gear. But at this point, it's all just marginally better, but they don't look different, and that's, so it's just kind of like, well, I don't know. It'd just be neat for customization's sake if you have, because each character is 4 slots, but it'd just be neat if as you're changing gear, it changes appearance. But no, all the but you have different outfits, and those all cost real money, or the in-game currency you can buy with money, and is otherwise I very slow to come across, and it might be finite as well. Um, but yeah, no, I was kind of looking forward to this game, and once again, it was going to land right in time for PAX. Um, and then yeah, I think maybe I was just so put off by hearing that Spider-Man's going to be Sony exclusive, and then so I just ended up, I came close to pre-ordering it, then I didn't, and then once it came out, it was bad. It was poorly reviewed, and then like even a year later when it started going on sale, I was just like, hey, looking for reviews. Hey, is this game any good? A year later, and there were no glowing reviews. And I was just like, but I want this game to be good, man. It's Avengers, but the saving grace is the story is okay. The story's okay. Um, and yeah, where else are you gonna play is Kamala Khan? That's how they got me. But yeah, but the kicker is, yeah, that is actually a game I purchased, and then it was added to Game Pass a week later, so it shouldn't even be on this list. Okay, but having completed Hades, I needed something new to fill those big shoes. Now, do these? Yes, the next 5 games were attempts to reclaim the throne. Starting with Dandy Ace, where you're a magician who's trapped in a mirror by your rival magician, or he's an illusionist, I suppose. Um, and what's neat about Dandier, so with Hades, you pick your weapon, and then as you progress through the levels, the gods grant you boons. And yes, there is a way to manipulate which god you have, and maybe you get a choice between this god or that. But otherwise, it's random boons. In this game, and playing through Hades, you have like a dash button, attack button, a special attack button, and a different special attack button, the cast button. In this game, like this fellow is holding a card in his hand, so you get cards, and those are your different maneuvers, and you get to decide when you pick up a card what of the four, three or four. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've played Dandy Ace. Three or four. When you pick up a card, any card, I don't care what card, you choose. Okay, this is going to be the A button or the B button, X button or Y button. I think maybe it's all four. Which means a card might be a dash or an attack or a special attack, and you have to decide. And not only that, each button also has like a spare slot where you can put in a card to affect how the main card. Like you can add attributes to cards you're putting in these button slots, and every time you pick up a card, you can replace any of the slots. So there is plenty of room for customization, and you have to analyze, okay, what cards am I getting and where are they going to go? That being said, and especially when you start unlocking more cards, it becomes a matter of, what cards are you getting? So in that way, it's like, well, that's to be expected in a lot of roguelike deck building games. Where what you do in a run depends on what cards you get, but it's just weird when it's just like, but the randomization affects how each of your buttons works, right? And you go through a run and it's kind of like, well, I sure hope I get this card, and then if hopefully you get it early enough, then you can power it up, or hopefully, or maybe throughout a run you're constantly switching what cards you're using. And the game's hard. Although I realized early on it was more difficult because as I'm going through, for we'll just say hallways. Well, they fork. They're mazes. Like each level you're in, and there might be 6 or 7 in a run, plus however many bosses in between. What was I saying? You pick up something about cards. Oh yes, difficulty. And as you go from room to room to room, there's going to be a given fight in any room. It turns out you can just run past most of the rooms. So I was having difficulty because there's very limited healing opportunities. So if you take the time to do all the fights, and you might get hit in any of the fights, yes, you're going to run out of health. Versus if you just run past all the rooms you don't have to fight in, then your longevity is greater. But the trade-off being that you're not getting as many coins or the currency that you eventually can trade in to unlock more upgrades. And then once you get more health permanent upgrades, then the game got easier and easier and easier, until I satisfyingly beat the first difficulty. And I figure once I am able to do that twice consecutively, maybe I'll go into the second difficulty, of which there are 4. But yes, it's a pale impression to Hades. Another attempt I had was Boyfriend Dungeon. Now I don't play. I don't know why I say it like that. Like I don't play. What do you call those? Romance simulator novellas, video game simulation. Dating sims. That's it. Ow. Oh, my eye. But this was a decent blend of dating sim and rogue like dungeon crawler where you, the protagonist, visit Venice Beach for the summer, where your cousin is trying to, you know, play matchmaker and introduce you to romantic opportunities, um, in a world where people can turn into weapons, and well, I guess this is true in Venice Beach, not necessarily the entire world. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It felt fun enough playing the romance sim parts. Only it turned out it wasn't exactly so, decision makey. Like, it seemed like no matter if you chose this way or another, you could slow down your progress towards romancing someone. But towards the end, it was just easy to romance everyone. Um, and I thought I was being interesting, clever by avoiding talking to this one person who I didn't care for. But then it turned out that was the one person who you do need to talk to in order to progress the story. So it was like, well, I was robbed of that one decision I made. And yeah, the combat was okay, but certainly not as deep as Hades or Dandy Ace, I would say. But these different romantic partners being different weapons and therefore having different combat styles was pretty neat. Curse of the Dead Gods. So once I got through Boyfriend Dungeon, and then was satisfyingly through Dandy Ace, is when I switched to Curse of the Dead Gods, which I had seen before. It was there in Game Pass. There was that option. Finally delved in, and yeah, it's tricky. It's hard. Like I say, if you don't like in roguelikes the part about you're going to die first run. Now this has this one complication where in addition to like a health bar, you have this other bar which dictates the amount of madness you're suffering from, and when it reaches a certain threshold, you get a curse, which is now, as opposed to Hades where you get random boons throughout the game. These curses are random, and most of them are just bad. Like, they could just be like you take more fire damage, or um, there's lantern. Now you need lanterns to be able to see very well. There might be like these lanterns don't ignite. They produce dark flame, which does not help with visibility. Sometimes today I was playing and there was one where it's just like every so often the room's gonna flip horizontally, but you get like +5 perception. So I was like, oh, that's good. And then it turned out the room flipping was infrequent enough that it didn't really like hinder me at all. So actually, when that curse was removed, which is usually a good thing, it was a penalty to me. But yeah, and sometimes, like I'm saying, so there's obvious bad curses. There's, oh, I'm just gonna this is going to force me to change my play style, but could still be beneficial curses. And then there's the occasional, oh, wait, that's an okay thing curse. Now, that would be okay if you could avoid being cursed. Like, some enemies hit you and it does HP damage and gives you some madness. But at the end of every room, like, you're in these dungeons, which are so many rooms, inevitably, when you leave one of these rooms, you automatically get 20 madness out of like the 100 you need to go to get a curse added to you. Um, so that's annoying that you can't avoid not being cursed. Um, and yeah, like a lot of rooms. So when you look at the map and you're choosing the next room to go to, you can choose between like, oh, okay, well, if you go to this room, you might get more attribute points. You might get an artifact if you go here. You might get a new weapon or a weapon upgrade if you go here. But all these things cost either gold, or you sacrifice some of your, or you willingly add more madness to you. So it's like, in order to get stronger, And as you're advancing, you automatically get madness. As you're trying to get stronger, you get madness, and it's just like boo earns. This is very annoying, very difficult. It's just and yeah, the combat itself is like you got to be very careful. Because yeah, so in addition to the limitation of health and madness, you have even in more short term, you have a stamina bar you got to keep track of, where every time you attack it costs one, every time you dodge it costs one, and you only have like five, and so you can like attack, dodge, and you're like, oh, I'm only down to one stamina, and you gotta wait 3 to 7 seconds for the stamina to refill. And yeah, dodging is hard, parrying is hard. The combat's hard, so it's a very you gotta as much as I don't want to sometimes. You gotta take it slow, and you gotta plan around the curses you're getting. You gotta be familiar with the weapons that are randomly dropping, and there's resource management. Because I realized today, well, you know what? If I instead of going to more rooms where I'm gonna trade curses for slightly better weapons, or in these artifacts and relics, and I should go to more rooms where I get gold, so that way I can just buy these upgrades with gold. Ah, yeah, think. Um, which I mean, yeah, Hades, sure. I don't know. It just more or less felt like, okay, you choose a good enough weapon to start with, and the boons for the most part were all beneficial. You could go to the Chaos Realm and willingly take a curse in exchange for a future boon, but it wasn't just you're getting worse and worse. It was you're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Versus Curse of the Dead Gods is frustrating, and you get weaker and weaker. But I do see now in some of the longer dungeons when you fight a boss, and if you succeed, you get to remove a curse. Oh, and the thing is, um, the first four curses, sure, they're random. They're likely to be bad. They might be impartial. They could be good. But the fifth one, if you let them accumulate, you just run out of health slowly. Like you just automatically lose health until you reach 1 HP, and then it stops. Um, and that's obvious. That's just the worst. uh, so it's stressful, but when you get farther, better and better, and farther and farther, oh boy, is that satisfying. Um, and yes, you do collect some resources for somewhat. There are permanent upgrades, but they are more like you still only get three. Like there's 15 permanent upgrades to buy, but for any given run, you can only have three of them. And then some of the other stuff that you can unlock is like the chance that this good weapon might drop. So there's not a lot of like, ooh, I'll just grind and um, buy my way to the top. It's like, no, you got to develop patience and skill and hope you don't get the worst curse. Um, and that was the start of November. Okay, so that's three of trying to replace or find a suitable replacement for Hades. Dicey Dungeons. Um, I mean, bam, that's an easy sell. Not quite a deck build. Well, okay, depending on what class you are, because all the different dice are different characters who behave differently, and some of them do have equipment which kind of acts like a deck in the sense that there's limited space in your backpack for all the equipment you have, but you decide which equipment goes into the combat. Unless you're a wacky class which changes all the time. Um, but yeah, you do combat by on your turn. You have a set amount of dice, and the dice are rolled, and you get randomly determined dice depending on what mission you're on, and you can apply those dice to different attacks. And then you got to strategize. Well, got to make sure I have abilities that which cover odd or can use odd dice and even dice. And anywho, I did write a review early on, or a little bit of a synopsis when I played through the first mission of all these different classes, and I remember writing that, this game's fun. It feels like, oh, if I lose, it's because I made bad decisions, and it's fair. Nope. Very early on, like I've maybe done 6 missions of the 36 that are available. I think maybe then there might be more. Um, I can't win anymore. They just because the enemies also roll dice, and there's nothing you can do if they're just like, well, I rolled 3 6s and I could just do 6 damage, 6 damage, 6 damage, and you've only got 18. You only got 30 health, so you're only gonna last 2 turns. Because I rolled crazy high on this one encounter, which was on the 5th level, and each level might take 10 minutes. Maybe not. And it's just like so frustrating. Also, this was stupid. Uh, Thankfully, this game is on Game Pass and Game Pass for PC. And also, I didn't even mention that a lot of games, for whatever reason, are playable on the Xbox Game Pass app on your phone. Not all the games have touch control. Sometimes you need to, pair it with a controller or whatever. Um, but it turns out there's a lot of games you can play on your phone just using touch controls. Dicey Dungeons that make sense. Sea of Thieves you can play, and like Gears and like first person shooters, and it's like and Fallout 76. And it's just like I can't imagine playing like good on them for like having that option and being innovative, but I can't imagine anyone having a thoroughly satisfying playing a first person shooter on your phone where like it'll simulate here's a joystick over here and here's the buttons, and like I don't even know where all the shoulder buttons would be, moving over here, moving over here, moving over here. And then like obviously if your thumbs are has to be the joystick and the buttons, and you're covering a third of the screen with your thumbs. It's just like okay, but okay, so thankfully I could play Dicey Dungeons on PC and technically on my phone, because the game doesn't work on the console for whatever reason. It was working fine for like the first week, maybe, if I'm being, well, I don't think I'm being conservative in that estimate. But then now, whenever I boot it up on the main screen, I can't select start or continue, and it's stupid. And the same is actually true for One Step from Eden. Like, only with One Step from Eden on the main page, at least like it'll say like here's the menu, start, co-op, library, settings, and there's a little button icon that says if you press A is how you select. If I press A, the button the icon flashes indicating it acknowledges I'm pushing a button, but it's not doing like it's not selecting any of the menu options, and that sucked because this game is awesome. One Step from Eden. This is one of the 5 games I purchased this year, recommended by a friend, who, like me, did like saw the appeal of Slay the Spire, but didn't like how in roguelike and deck building roguelikes, particularly in Slay the Spire, how like sometimes you end up in a level that there was no way you could have prepared for, or maybe if you're building your deck this way, and it's just like, oh well, here's the boss or this boss that what, your strategy just won't work, so too bad, you're done. One Step from Eden, while containing roguelike qualities and does include a deck, which you do have to manage, and sometimes it's good to keep your deck small, so it's only the cards that you synergize with your character, and by keeping it small, you're going to get the spells that work with your strategy. Um, where was I going with that? Oh, it does contain that. It also, unlike Slay the Spire, unlike Monster Train, is action based. Plays a lot like the Mega Man Battle Network series, where you got a 4x4 grid on one side, a 4x4 grid on the other. So your opponent's over here, they're stuck in these 16 squares, you're stuck in these 16 squares, and like you can see which squares your opponent's shooting at, and you move around, and your spells, depending on what spells you're playing, they'll tell you like, oh, this one hits 4 squares away, or hits from above and hits down, or hits an entire column. So you gotta aim and shoot and dodge and maintain your deck, and it's very satisfying. Also very hard. Um, and I just can't play it on console. I see online they're saying like, oh, if you reset the Xbox and do a thing where you got to hold down the power button so the cache is cleared. Well, I did that. I don't know. It didn't fix it, and it's not a permanent fix, so it's just very annoying. But yeah, what eventually got me. And yeah, even though I'm losing, it's still a fun experience, and you take responsibility for losing, which is more fulfilling, I think, than just like go back to dicey dungeons. You lose because they rolled a 6. Eventually, they're gonna roll a 6. Like it's just. Ugh. But in this, it's like sure, even in the worst of times where it's just like holy moly, this person hit all the squares on my side in rapid order. It's like well, you can still see kind of that there was a pattern to the attack, and theoretically, even you could have dodged it. Um, you just need to learn the patterns, and maybe spend a little less time focusing on where your attacks are going to land, and more on defensive and when attacking when it's safer to do so. One thing I did which helped me succeed in the run was there's different characters and they start with different decks and have different weapons. And I watched this very useful video which the author was ranking all the different characters in terms of who is easiest to use as a beginner. And they just they just ranked it, and like I actually went with the person they suggested would be third easiest, and they just explained like, oh, if you use this weapon with this card, which I thought didn't have synergy, but they explained how it does. And then after I listened to that, the next day I tried and reached almost the very end where I otherwise throughout the year playing previously on I couldn't get very far. And then and then within 2 attempts, I reached the ending for the first time. It was amazing. So yeah, there's so not only do all the different characters, you know, you can see they get different cards and different weapons, but yeah, you actually have to sit down and go, okay, but why do these cards and weapons that they start with, why do they make sense? What do I have to do in order for this character to be played successfully? And then yeah, as you play, and if you don't succeed, you get your experience that you got from your run does unlock things, and you get more powerful artifacts and more powerful cards in future runs, and alternate play styles for some of the different characters. Um, would I say that One Step from Eden is the second best roguelike? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know. But certainly it is a game like Hades where I'll just be like, oh man, I want to play a game that's fun. Get over there, you. Um, and then yeah, so between Dicey Dungeons, One Step from Eden, and possibly Curse of the Dead Gods, um, playing all the, now I here at least when I was playing with Hades, like I say, or even Slay the Spire or Hades, like I'm saying, like I'd be satisfied playing a run, so like 30 minutes, maybe to 45 minutes, and then and then I would do that maybe daily, and then switch to something else, whatever else I'm playing at the time, or is available now. Trying to fill the Hades void with all these different roguelites, which are more difficult, or at least more difficult than Hades once I've learned what I'm doing and I'm just trying to grind out the ending. So between Dicey Dungeons, or just constantly losing at Dicey Dungeons, One Step from Eden, and Curse of the Dead Gods, and switching between the three, like playing a run of each game and just being like, you lost, you lost, you lost. At some point, I was just like, I want to play a game where, like, not necessarily like a Telltale game where it's just you win, doesn't matter what buttons you push, but I'm just like, I want to play something that's just like I don't know why I didn't switch to ukulele and the Impossible Lair, but like I felt like, I want to play something like a platformer. Now Celeste had been removed from the Game Pass, but it occurred to me somehow it was still in my library, and I'm like, oh, it was a Games with Gold. So so even though I was just like, I want something where I'm probably more likely to succeed. I'm sure some people are gonna be like, "You're crazy for choosing Celeste," um, and it's pretty tricky. And yeah, so far I put in an hour and a half, so not tremendously far. And yeah, there's a lot of strawberries that are hidden and are just like, once again, I hope it falls. I'm hoping it falls under. There's got to be a solution, and you're just not thinking of it. I'm hoping it's that, and not a matter of, nope, it's Metroidvania. You can't. We're putting this strawberry here now, but you can't get it until you unlock, all the moves. But I don't get the impression Celeste is that game, but maybe it is. So there's some that I'm willing to now skip, and then maybe I'll be like, dang, that was wrong. Um, Also, it's just got a charming art style and just as weird things like they show the dialogue box and you got the character portrait and then the dialogue of what they're saying, and it's just it just was a shock, a surprise when one of the characters like looked out of their portrait, like they were out of the frame, and it's just like, oh geez, this game is mental. Rage 2. Yeah, I guess I was in the mood for something open worldy, something RPG with talent trees. Um, and by the sounds of it, the first game, like the plot was just there's a bad guy, stop him. So that's why I felt like I didn't really need to play the first one to just jump into the second one, which sounded okay. Um, and yeah, it almost feels like the people who made Fallout, their attempt at Borderlands, just in the case of running and gunning. Um, Although a lot of people say it also plays a lot like Doom, which I just never like the more recent iteration, because you're supposed to actually once you shoot someone down, they drop health, so you can't just stay in one spot and like pew, 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 pew. You're supposed to actually like run up, maybe hit them with melee before shooting them because they drop health, so that way you're supposed to actually pick it up, and then it just disappears if you don't pick it up fast enough. So you're supposed to constantly be moving. Um, and yeah, you're just a very special person, and the only one who can open certain vaults, which contain powerful upgrades, powerful weapons. While you go talk to people who um, are scientists who can help you open up the most special vault of all, probably. While there are bandits running around and mutants and evil robots, or like a military robot organization, something like that. It could be mindless fun. I'm probably better off not thinking about how everything fits together. Um, and then the most recent game I have started from which was accessible through Game Pass, the Procession to Calvary. Um, which was just a game that I completed it for, or needed some achievements for an achievement challenge I was doing. I believe this game was funded through crowdsourcing, and says it should, or true achievements indicates it's 1 to 2 hours to complete. I had to do 2 or 3 playthroughs just to get all the achievements. I don't know. People were saying like, "Oh, it's hilarious," and yeah, it looks like they're aiming for Monty Python-esque humor. The art's incredible. It looks like all the assets are just taken completely from Renaissance paintings, and like all the characters you see and all the backgrounds I believe are just straight up paintings. All the characters you come across may have been from different paintings from the background, or instead of the ones from the backgrounds you're looking at. And all the music is classical music as well, and it's just a point and click adventure about someone who was killing people in the Holy Crusades and was told, "Oh, the war is over. Stop killing people." And they're like, "Can I kill one more person?" So they try to hunt down the evil religious leader who was on the opposing side of the war. But really, the funniest bit I think in the entire game was I open up the settings menu because I always like to see if I can turn on subtitles. Um, and there was only like 2 options. One was just like turn autosave on or off. Do you want music volume up or down? And then the third option, which was a checkbox, was do you want to make it so when you leave the settings menu, a monk blows a raspberry? So I turn that on, leave the exit, and there's a picture of this monk pops up, and he's like, so that was I thought that was the funniest part. Um, and yeah, kind of satisfying puzzles. There was only one I just had to look up where it's just like, oh, okay, there was this thing I had to do where there's no way I would have guessed that you had to like sometimes with these point and click things where you do have an inventory. Sometimes I find myself so lost that I'm just like, I don't know, man. Keys. Do you want this? No. Do you want this? No. Do you want this? No. Keys. You want this? No. And then okay, the next item, a book. Book. Do you want this? And then, but yeah, so it was one of those things where it's just like you had to take something from your inventory and interact it with something which I didn't even realize was a thing to interact with. So I don't feel so bad. Yeah. And that you see, so yeah, that is 53 games that I didn't pay for. That just goes to show how much of a value Game Pass is. Um, were they all? Would I have purchased most of these? I didn't think to ask myself that sooner. Um, Several of them I probably wouldn't have, like all these smaller ones that are just stories that are quick completion. Um, Several of them I probably would have. But like I say, from the get go, from having access to Game Pass, and with my aversion to rogue like games, or my past aversion to such games, I probably wouldn't have even started, and now have discovered a new favorite genre. Um, but I've certainly saved a lot of money, and as to whether or not it's like okay, but that's just Game Pass. Recently I got an email from Nintendo saying you've only played, or they're like, they were trying to be like, wow, look how many hours you've played on the Switch this year, and this year it was 2. So it's like, so yeah, I ended up buying 5 games, 3 of which ended up being on Game Pass. Another one was $1. I did another humble bundle for on itch.io for Palestinian aid, but nothing there really I played more than once. And Grifflands on PC by Clay Entertainment, who made Mark of the Ninja. And that's, yeah, never mind. Good studio there. Blurry. So yeah, so I paid $1 a year ago and got access to that 53 games, of which I've lost access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yes, there is that concern. Oh, they do take games away, but most of them are still up there. It does become a matter of like, okay, well, what studios were there? But then, yeah, no, that solves a lot of it because like all the Microsoft first party ones are probably less likely to be removed from Game Pass, like Bethesda, and the EA games. And if nothing else, now you know what I have been playing, and maybe what I like to play too, and maybe you can point out what I missed. Thank you for hearing me out. Have fun.